Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, she questioned her own accomplishment. Why is the sea so agitated? The tumultuous change in the waters did not go unnoticed by the Princess of the Tritons. The moment she shouted in anger, closing her eyes in an emotional impulse, coincided with the sight of the retreating Sea King, avoiding her as if its own existence were threatened. Despite the sudden chaos unleashed in the ocean, Shirahoshi delved into deep thoughts about what she had just accomplished with the sea creature. A torrent of reflections flooded her mind. I could feel its fear. It obeyed my words, even though I am weak. The princess's eyes watched the spot where the immense sea monster had retreated, leaving only the trail of roiling waves indicating its escape. The scene before her witnessed the magnitude of the newly discovered power residing within her. She turned her face toward Luffy, ready to share the success, but her contentment was replaced by shock as she noticed half of the crew lying on the ground. Everyone? Megalo. What happened to you? Her desperate cry echoed, and she ran towards her oldest friend. You did this, didn't you feel the shockwave release? Zoro inquired, curiously watching the mermaid grab her friend while shaking him, trying to wake him up. Ha 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 ha. He's fine, just passed out like the others. Now, we need to worry about the giant waves. Luffy laughed, trying to reassure Shirahoshi. Are they okay? Did I do this, with the others too? She asked, still frightened. They're all fine. You unleashed something even I didn't expect. I'm proud, very well done. You did much more than I initially imagined. Congratulations, Shirahoshi. Praised Luffy, smiling enthusiastically at his companion, impressed with the manifested power of Poseidon. Wait, but Luffy, can this thing called Conqueror's Haki make the sea tremble for a moment? Did it cause this? Rage raised her eyebrow, intrigued. One thing was making others faint, another was making the sea act as if undergoing a global earthquake. She was unaware that Shirahoshi's shout had awakened beings thousands of meters deep in the sea, almost emerging in response to the call. However, as it was a quick and unconscious call, there was no need to bring these creatures out of the water. Still, this movement shook everything from one horizon to another, raising questions even in Luffy's mind about the possible consequences for the islands in the region. No, Conqueror's Haki shouldn't have this effect. Yamato confidently asserted. That's a matter for another time. Let's focus on getting out of this chaos first. Nami, take care of the giant waves. Luffy ordered, instructing her to use her wind power to prevent the sea from hitting the ship. Nami created white wings behind her and took off into the air, using the power of the wind to fend off the large waves forming. Now, let's wake up the others. We're almost at the destination. Meanwhile, I'll have a chat with that Hugo, said Luffy, jumping onto the marine ship amid the maritime chaos. Meanwhile, at Arlong Park, they were content after the Marines left to retrieve Nami's gold. However, while they smiled and made jokes, something unimaginable happened. Everything suddenly fell silent, and all the fishmen looked at the sea immediately, ending their momentary fun. What is this? Everything went silent. This isn't normal, they murmured, witnessing the sudden unrest, feeling something big approaching them. Then a shockwave came from the open sea, making the fishmen feel the greatest kind of fear possible they had ever experienced in their lives, as if something powerful wanted all sea creatures to bow before this thing. Everyone without exception became scared, including Arlong. What was that? One of the fishmen stuttered, seeing that everything calmed down shortly afterward. Everyone had their eyes on the horizon, wondering what that was. Roar. The tremor not only affected the sea but even the island shook with it. But the major chaos was the sea getting agitated at that moment. Countless waves erupted from the depths of the sea, as if the sea came to life, creating turmoil like never seen before in their lives. What is this, Arlong-san? The sea seems furious. What could cause something like this? Didn't you feel it? I felt a powerful shockwave suddenly, as if something much more powerful than anything I've ever felt before wanted me to bend my knees in reverence. Yes, it was a horrible sensation. What the hell is happening? Arlong said, alarmed. He was also scared, and seeing the sea act like this, something unimaginable must have happened where that wave of power came from. Ecchi. Call Momo, he must have the answer. Someone said. Nay. Yes. Ecchi said and ran to beat the drum and call Momo. Drum 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 drum. Where is Momo? Why isn't he responding to the call? Arlong demanded. Nay. I don't know, Arlong. Something must have happened to him. This turmoil is too recurring. Ecchi said with a bit of fear of the unknown. Seeing the waves hitting on all sides, where it was a calm sea just moments ago, all the fishmen had a little fear in their hearts. Ecchi, dive and look for Momo. Arlong ordered. Nay. Yes, Arlong. Ecchi said and quickly jumped into the water amid the giant waves. While these shock events echoed through distant islands, thousands of kilometers from the Black Pearl, the power unleashed by the world's largest creatures generated maritime chaos that transcended common understanding. The immediate result was an oceanic whirlpool, a small tsunami that spread relentlessly, reaching half of the East Blue and even invading a portion of the Grand Line. This phenomenon left entire kingdoms in a state of apprehension, a palpable anxiety that spread like an epidemic. Leaders and citizens, equally perplexed, gazed at the skies, seeking answers they could not find. Chaotic waves hit ports and shores, triggering widespread panic among those who had never witnessed nature rebelling with such intensity. Concern spread like wildfire, fueled by the uncertainty of the unknown. Distant realms, united by common fear, wondered if this maritime disturbance was a harbinger of imminent disaster or simply a momentary whim of Mother Nature. Even the most skeptical, who had never witnessed anything so extraordinary, were forced to reconsider their notions of stability, as the ocean, for a brief moment, revealed its unquestionable power and mystery. Smoker, the marine captain in Logetown, watched with a stern expression as chaos unfolded before his eyes. What was once a serene and calm harbor had now turned into a naval battlefield, with the violent waves crashing against the docks and ships, challenging the skill of the local sailors. He stood on the deck of his ship, the smoke from his cigar playing with the stirred sea breeze. The smoke dissipated into the air, echoing the tension he felt as he watched the sea revolt against its own nature. What the hell is happening? Smoker grumbled. He could feel the abnormality of the situation. The sea didn't usually act this way, as if it were in disagreement with the laws of nature. The waves, now towering like hills, crashed against the hulls of ships, testing the resilience of the anchored vessels. Local fishermen, desperate, cried for help as their small boats were tossed back and forth like leaves in the wind. Captain Smoker. We can't venture into the sea in this state. Dashigi looked with concern at the sea, where 5-meter waves were hitting the port of Logetown. Many seafaring fishermen were asking for help, and the Marines were trying to assist them in this chaos. TSK. Yeah, damn sudden event. It will be too late by the time we reach the distress call from Naval Base 16. Smoker growled, frustrated with the situation. Captain Smoker, what should we do? Asked Tashigi, his subordinate, holding her sword firmly amid the turmoil. The sailors around were equally perplexed, unable to comprehend the origin of this maritime phenomenon. Smoker clenched his jaw, looking at the choppy waves with a serious expression. This is not natural. It seems we're dealing with something out of the ordinary. Prepare to evacuate the fishermen and ensure the vessels are securely anchored. We can't allow any more damage. As Smoker gave his orders, he couldn't help but wonder about the cause of this maritime unrest. Something significant was happening, something that transcended Logetown's everyday concerns. He wondered if this was a harbinger of an imminent threat or just a momentary whim of the ocean, but his intuition told him that the sea was about to reveal its deepest secrets. Meanwhile, the main instigator of the event that could be the greatest disaster of this era was happily singing like an excited little girl. IDIDIT, IDIDIT. I commanded a sea king. Sharky sharky sharky. IDIDIT, IDIDIT. I commanded a sea king. Sharky sharky sharky. IDIDIT, IDIDIT. I commanded a sea king. Sharky sharky sharky. The crew couldn't help but smile at a scene where Shira Hoshi sang along with Megalo after he woke up and celebrated with her friend for her accomplishment. Meanwhile, Luffy headed towards the marine ship in search of the Black Pearl. You held up well against that. Luffy smiled at the man, who was panting, trying to maintain composure. The man just stared at Luffy, exhausted, his eyes revealing the fatigue of an intense confrontation. I wonder what's the reason for you not succumbing to the Conqueror's hockey. Luffy examined the man's eyes and, for a moment, was surprised by what he found. Your determination is hatred? Luffy commented, narrowing his eyes, trying to decipher the intensity of the emotion emanating from the man's eyes. Shut up. You know nothing about me. Hugo suddenly growled. Although the man seemed grateful for his comrades freeing him from the cells, the mention of his inner self seemed to touch a sensitive point, turning his normally cheerful expression into a sudden coldness. I guess you're right. It's not my problem, although I'm inclined to want to know. Well. Anyway, goodbye. Luffy, realizing it was a personal and sensitive matter, chose to leave the man alone. His curiosity was piqued, but he respected boundaries when it came to personal and emotion-laden matters like this. Seeing Luffy walking away, Hugo suddenly spoke. You wouldn't understand. No one would. Hugo stares at Luffy, sighs deeply. Try explaining it to me then. Sometimes, it's good to share. Luffy asked with curiosity. He is always interested in people with powerful wills. Do you think I haven't tried? People just don't want to listen. Hugo said, frustrated. I want to listen. If we don't try to understand each other, how can we hope to change the world? It's a long story. Hugo spoke reluctantly. I have time. And if it helps, telling the story can be a weight off your shoulders. Luffy said, smiling. You know, I lost everything. My family, my home. All because of an injustice I couldn't prevent. The man said, looking at the ground. Luffy, with empathy, I'm sorry to hear that. Anger took over me. Every time I think of that moment, it feels like my heart is about to explode. He said, taking a deep breath. Luffy remained silent. They came to our town like a black storm. Our king quickly kneeled before their arrival. We were a simple kingdom made up of simple people, farmers and fishermen, with nothing that could interest them. But they wanted to come to our humble land. They wanted our souls, our submission. The man paused, his voice choked with the weight of resurfacing memories. Luffy, with a serious gaze, silently encouraged him to continue. They came to our town, and we couldn't do anything to prevent it. We tried not to get involved. I lived in a small neighborhood, but one of them wanted to come to us to see people like the people they considered trash live their lives. Tears began to stream down the man's face, a torrent of accumulated pain. The salty sea breeze seemed to mingle with the salt of his tears. When one of them saw us, even kneeling in respect and fear, he didn't seem satisfied. He came to my family and started humiliating us, had the audacity to want to take my daughter as a new slave right after, saying all kinds of horrible things that would happen. I couldn't allow that to happen, so I ran to attack that man. I tried, but I was stopped by his guards, strong enough to not even let me get close. Amidst the words, tears continued to flow down the man's face, releasing a burden he had carried for a long time. It was as if, by telling his story to a stranger who had helped him, he could finally share the weight of his deepest and darkest secret in life. Hugo didn't know why, but when he saw Luffy walking away, he couldn't control his mouth and began to talk about the darkest moment of his life, something he had kept to himself for months. His tears fell like a weeping man, and he continued his story, while Luffy just looked at him without showing any emotion. He was dissatisfied that I had dirtied his clothes in the middle of my fight. He said that as his punishment, he would kill my daughter, and he did, killed her with a shot in front of me. My daughter died like a beast slaughtered. And I couldn't do anything. I saw her die, and my wife went into despair, which resulted in another shot for her. He joined my daughter faster than I could react. It felt like I was in a terrible nightmare. I just wanted to wake up. The man cried in despair, and Luffy continued to calmly look at him, but he didn't know what to say after hearing all of this. Can you imagine, seeing your own daughter and wife die in front of you like animals just because someone decided it? I wanted to die in that moment. I wanted to kill him, torture him, I wanted to burn the whole world. He shouted, not caring about the cascade falling from his eyes. His yelling drew the attention of people on Luffy's ship as well. Even some former captives woke up at that moment, looking scared at the man screaming, wondering why there were so many people unconscious around them. What happened to you? Luffy asked calmly, curious about how these events unfolded afterward. I tried to kill him. I looked like a raging animal at that moment. I just wanted to tear that damned demon apart, but I never had a chance. I was beaten by his guards. No matter how many times I got up, he laughed at me every time I tried to kill him. He called me an inferior being and shot me in the chest right after. He continued with the shouting. I thought I would die right away, but he never gave me that mercy. He wanted me to die slowly and left me there, bleeding to death, saying I should be thinking about how I shouldn't fight against the gods of this world in my last moments of life. Hugo yelled like an animal. Even Luffy felt a bit disturbed by this story. How did you end up in that naval base as a slave? Luffy asked curiously. I was saved, left to die bleeding in the mud, but some slave traders saw value in my strong body. They pulled me off the street and healed me, but sold me shortly after. I traveled for 2 months before reaching that base you guys attacked. He answered, but he seemed calmer now. Luffy never imagined someone harboring so much anger against that people before. Do you hate them? I mean, the world nobles? Do you want revenge? Luffy wondered what the man would answer. There were many like him, but not many would show discontent so openly to a stranger. Of course I do. I want to kill them all, exterminate every last one of them. His voice had a great fury, which left Luffy with raised eyebrows. Ha 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 ha. Luffy started laughing at this response. What are you laughing at? Hugo became furious, almost wanting to run towards Luffy after hearing his story. He was completely beside himself when this man seemed to mock the death of his daughter and wife. Boom. Before Hugo could get close to Luffy, the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates kicked a large man, sending him crashing directly into the deck's wall. Don't get me wrong, Hugo, I'm not laughing at the death of your daughter and wife, I'm truly sorry for that. But people like you are rare. Most would keep their thoughts to themselves, others would try to forget the past, but you seem to have the determination to even resist a hockey that not even some of my crew members did. What do you mean? He demanded, his anger bubbling. What I mean is that you're interesting. To the point where I'm tempted to invite you to join my crew. I plan to punch a lot of celestial dragons, and I need people who want to gain strength and power, who are reliable and not afraid to go to war with those people up there on the red line. Luffy smiled at the man with genuine interest, his offer hanging like a storm about to unleash. Celestial dragons? Did you really just say that? Who do you think you are to utter those words? What do you know about them? Do you think you can face them? You're just a naive kid playing pirate, soon they will kill you. Hugo growled at Luffy, fury pulsating in his words. Well, I've already said it. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will rule the seas. Even if I have to create a mountain of corpses with the celestial dragons and have to destroy Marigoys one day, I'll do it to achieve my goals. Luffy spoke sincerely, his voice laden with determination that echoed like thunder in a stormy sky. The former captives couldn't believe these words, wondering if this pirate man was some kind of madman. Hugo didn't say anything, just looked at Luffy, trying to detect any deceit in his voice, but the seriousness in the eyes of the Straw Hat Pirates captain was undeniable. Anyway, we're reaching Kokoyasi village. I plan to deal with some local pirates and leave a day later. I'm inclined to invite you to my crew, so come to me before we leave. If you want to embark on a journey that may cause a world war, feel free to do as you please. If you don't want to, you can even leave right now, I don't care. Luffy turned his back and left the marine ship, returning to the Black Pearl. His invitation hung in the air like a promise of a storm forming on the horizon, leaving Hugo in a whirlwind of thoughts and choices. Chapter 58, Kokoyasi Village 1. The sea has finally calmed. Nami said relieved, she was tired of destroying giant waves with the power of the wind until just recently. Time passed, and they found themselves getting closer and closer to the island. What's that in the sea? Yamato suddenly asked. Everyone was going about their normal routines as they waited to reach Nami's island. What did you see, Yamato? Luffy asked beside her. I think it's a fishman, he's circling our ship right now. She said. So, it's one of Arlong's scouts. Luffy thought for a moment. Yamato, Nami, and I are devil fruit users. And we're the strongest here. I don't think Reiju or Zoro could fight a fishman in the middle of the sea. I have to get him out of the water. I might have a plan for that, remembering how arrogant they are, I believe this will work. Luffy smiled with a possibility, his eyes shining with the excitement of a cunning strategist. Shirahoshi, my princess, come here. I want to tell you something. Luffy's call echoed, and Shirahoshi, curious, went to him. That simple title, my princess, attracted many suspicious looks. It was a rare display of formality from Luffy, making everyone alert, anticipating something unusual. Whisper whisper whisper. Are you sure, Luffy-sama? Someone's whispering voice in the crowd echoed with surprise and doubt. Of course. Ha 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 ha, I think it's a good plan. Can you do it? Luffy asked, smiling at the princess. His eyes conveyed unwavering confidence as Shirahoshi looked at Luffy with a mix of uncertainty and curiosity. The air was charged with expectation as the plan began to unfold, involving not only physical challenge but also intrigue and strategy. All right, I can do it, Luffy-sama. She said, determined, clenching a fist, the sea bubbles around her seeming to tremble with the intensity of her decision. That's great, be ready. Luffy spoke with contagious enthusiasm, as if about to reveal the most amazing trick in the world. What do you think they're going to do? Usopp asked, curious, his observant eyes sharp for any twists in the situation. Honestly, I think I'd regret hearing the answer. Reiju muttered with a touch of concern, her mind trying to anticipate the next events. Luffy, you better not do anything that harms the integrity of that mermaid. Nami growled, casting a warning glance at the captain, knowing that his ideas didn't always follow the conventional script. A moment later. Ha 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 ha, this beautiful mermaid is mine. I've captured the most beautiful mermaid in the world. Luffy shouted, laughing uproariously at the bow of his ship, balanced on Ifrit's head, while holding Shirahoshi, who was tied in front of him, as if displaying a trophy in a marine comedy parade. The crew members looked at this scene with stunned eyes, their minds calculating how to retrieve the fishman at the bottom of the ship in this strange and embarrassing way. It was a mix of surprise and confusion, making the situation even more hilarious. Luffy-sama, bad, don't say so many embarrassing things. Shirahoshi couldn't help but complain, her voice mixing with the collective laughter that took over the ship. What do you think you're doing? Yamato had shark-toothed eyes and a bewildered expression when she saw this scene, her face a mix of surprise and confusion. Is she blushing? Reiju said, letting the cigarette fall from her mouth, her eyes watching the scene with a mix of amusement and curiosity. She looks happy. What's going on between those two, huh? Kuina was angry, her brows furrowed as she tried to understand what was happening. Was it supposed to be a trap, or an opportunity for them to flirt with each other? Nami was angry too, crossing her arms in indignation. No woman can escape the charms of Brother Luffy, he's so cool. Johnny and Yosaku exclaimed in admiration, their eyes shining with a mix of surprise and envy. What do you mean, no woman? Nami shouted and used her powers. Two enormous claws appeared in the air and threw the bounty hunters away, a gesture of pure frustration. Ha 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 ha. Try to be a little more convincing, Shirahoshi, that fishman will think we're setting a trap for him if you speak like that. Luffy said into the ears of a blushing Shirahoshi, his voice full of mischief. I think Luffy-sama is right, I want to help him. She said with more determination, a gleam of resolve in her eyes as she tried to get used to the unusual situation. Luffy smiled at the mermaid's response and, unable to contain himself, shouted again. Now that I have my OWN mermaid, I'm going to make her marry me, filling her with love and filling the house with little humans and fishmen in a house on some hill on a small island. Ha 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 ha. I'm so evil. Luffy shouted, his laughter echoing theatrically and exaggeratedly, turning the situation into a comedic spectacle for everyone on board. Sharky? Megalo choked on this, his fish eyes widened, expressing total disbelief at the absurdity of the situation. This is so over the top. Reiju shouted indignantly, her face twisted in a mix of confusion and amusement. How can he say something like that? Yamato was boiling with anger, gripping her weapon even tighter, wishing to strike Luffy at that moment. Luffy is so relentless. Usopp murmured, watching the scene with a mix of shock and admiration. Why are we here wasting time when we could jump into the water and easily deal with that fishman? Zoro scoffed, his serious expression contrasting with the absurdity of the situation. I agree with you, Zoro. I'd rather be in the water fighting a fishman than listening to these things. Kuina said with a lifeless look, as if Luffy's comedy was simply too much for her to bear. Nami slapped her own face, an expression of disbelief spreading across her face as she witnessed the absurd situation. The bounty hunters were unconscious, sprawled on the deck after being thrown by Nami and her powers, like pieces on a board of crazy comedy. Ouch! Chaochu tried to wake them up, licking their faces with a mix of canine confusion and concern. Meanwhile, Hugo and the others on board could hear some commotion coming from the front ship, but no one could access it to see what was happening. Curiosity grew like a wave, leaving everyone impatient. Luffy-sama, don't say so many embarrassing things, I have to ask daddy before I marry you. Shirahoshi cried in embarrassment, her words echoing in a tone that mixed surprise and embarrassment. Hearing those words, the entire crew fell to the ground, stunned, as if they had been struck by an unexpected lightning bolt of humor. Well, that's something we should discuss in the future, princess. First, let's focus on taunting that fish man. Luffy was stunned, trying to compose himself in the face of the unexpected turn of events. But Luffy-sama, say something less embarrassing. Shirahoshi cried, her face blushing even more. All right. I will. Luffy yielded to the girl's demand, but before he could continue, they were interrupted by the sound of water, and a strangely dressed figure landed on the ship the next moment. The new character, unusual and peculiar, seemed to have stepped straight out of a water-themed comedy play. Ecchi was furious, his mood already shaken by the fruitless search for any sign of Momo in the choppy waters. To his surprise, amidst the search, he spotted two ships approaching the island, an imposing pirate warship and another from the navy. However, what surprised him the most was the sight of a mermaid being captured by a human, displayed at the ship's prow like a trophy. What is this mermaid doing here? She looks familiar, but I can't remember her. Who is she, and how does this inferior human dare to touch her? Ecchi was furious but contained his anger, thinking it best to report to Arlong before taking any action. As he prepared to leave, he heard the provocative insinuations of that human about his plans with the innocent mermaid. Ecchi could no longer stand hearing that and went straight toward the ship. Upon landing on the vessel, he was faced with a crowd of humans, some with a strange appearance, including one who stood out at almost 3 meters tall. However, Ecchi ignored the others, focusing his anger on Luffy and Shirahoshi. "Hey! Inferior human! How dare you take one of ours? I'll kill you!" Ecchi drew his swords from their sheaths and positioned them with his 6 arms quickly. Boom! Without giving the fishman time to react, Yamato, already in a bad mood after getting irritated with Luffy and his antics, delivered a punch to the fish with such anger and impatience that it broke the wood beneath him. This, despite the warship being significantly sturdier than any they had faced before. "Did you kill him?" Luffy asked, visibly alarmed by the strength of the blow. "And what if I did?" "I don't care." Yamato huffed, distancing herself from them with an expression still laden with anger. "She seems to be in a bad mood," Shirahoshi said, feeling a shiver of fear at the intensity of Yamato at that moment. "She'll be fine. Must be that time of the month," Luffy muttered, shrugging as if the explanation were enough to justify the young woman's behavior. "This is Ecchi, one of Arlong's most trusted." Nami expressed her surprise as she introduced the fishman, her gaze denoting a mix of recognition and distrust. "He's still alive?" Luffy asked, displaying his characteristic surprise, tinged with a hint of disbelief, as he observed the fishman in front of him. "I hope he is. Yamato didn't even give me a chance to fight him. I wanted to see that 6-sword style," Zoro complained, his expression indicating a tinge of frustration at the missed opportunity. "He's alive, but he'll be unconscious for quite some time." Kuina spoke after examining him, her voice laden with medical pragmatism. "Nay." Ecchi could only groan unconsciously, oblivious to everything happening around him as he remained in a state of lethargy induced by the intensity of the blow he received. "Luffy, you can let go of Shirahoshi now," Nami complained, crossing her arms and casting a reproachful glance toward the captain. All eyes turned to Luffy, who still held the princess by the waist, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort he was causing. "Luffy-sama, do you like these things?" Shirahoshi asked, curious, while people around awaited the response. "What a playboy-sama. I knew our captain was no good. He's a wolf that doesn't even try to hide his claws. Damn womanizer. My Toki is betraying me." The women expressed their discontent with Luffy, throwing accusatory and indignant comments. "I haven't slept with anyone since I arrived in this damn world, but these women are already judging me? At least let me have sex with someone before calling me these things." Luffy thought indignantly, his expression revealing a mix of surprise and frustration at the women's misunderstanding of his intentions. As time passed and the Black Pearl, the Straw Hats ship, approached Kokoyasi Island, the exuberant and vibrant atmosphere of the region gradually unfolded. The majestic outline of the Black Pearl stood out against the horizon, its sails billowing in the wind as the polished hull cut through the waters with grace. The tall mast, adorned with Luffy's characteristic flag, fluttered with determination, announcing the presence of the pirates in the area. As they neared the island, the tropical landscape unfolded before them. The colorful buildings of Kokoyasi village emerged among the lush tree canopies on that side of the island, creating a picturesque and welcoming sight. Palm trees rose along the beaches, swaying gently in the sea breeze. The nearby waterfall echoed with the gentle sound of water, adding a natural soundtrack to the pirates' arrival. Local flowers exuded sweet fragrances, blending with the salty sea air. Fishing boats, painted in vibrant colors, were anchored along the coast, witnessing the island's everyday tranquility. The locals began to notice the arrival of the Black Pearl, curious about the newcomers. The sky, now tinted with light shades of early evening, indicated that sunset was approaching, casting a soft light over the island. Kokoyasi awaited the arrival of the Straw Hats, ready to witness the events that would unfold in Nami's homeland. The Straw Hats decided not to anchor in the village but to head directly to Nami's house, situated on a hill overlooking the ocean. The pirate ship maneuvered skillfully, navigating the island's coast until reaching a more secluded cove. The Black Pearl headed for the beach to dock the ship on solid ground. As Black Pearl approached Kokoyasi Island, they glimpsed an unexpected scene on the beach. A formidable marine ship was anchored, its tall masts standing out against the blue sky. The marine flag fluttered in the wind, clearly indicating the presence of naval forces on the island. "A marine ship?" Nami exclaimed at the ship's edge, looking at it with considerable surprise. "Nami, it's possible that Arlong betrayed you and sent the marines to take your money without interference," Luffy commented beside her. "What? No, he can't do that," she shouted angrily. Upon seeing the marine ship, Nami felt a mix of anger and apprehension. Her eyes filled with tears, Not just for the possible betrayal by Arlong but also for the uncertainty about her sister's safety and the village. As tears began to flow around her eyes and winds started to swirl, gaining some green marks traversing her body. Calm down, Nami, you're not the same anymore. It must be Captain Nozomi, that's why we didn't find him at the base. Come on, let's go, I want to see his face right now. I want you to bombard that ship now, announced Luffy, determined. He could simply blow up the ship but chose to announce the presence of the enemy ship rather than attribute the action to a devil fruit power. Come on, Nami, let's see if your sister is safe. Without hesitation, Luffy picked up Nami in his arms and jumped off the ship, flying towards the coast, determined to face whatever was coming and ensure Nami's sister's safety. The Black Pearl continued heading for the beach, but Usopp and Shirahoshi soon went to the ship's gun cabins, ready to destroy that ship with some marines guarding it at the moment. In a distant scene, amid the tension surrounding the arrival of the marine ship, a fearless young woman with flowing blue hair, Nojiko, raised her voice against the naval officers. "You can't do this!" she shouted, defying the maritime authorities now involved in the island's affairs. Nozomi, an arrogant marine, taunted Nojiko, mocking her resistance to the justice of the marines. "Shut up, civilian. Dare to question the marines and justice? You'll get shot for meddling in marine affairs," he threatened, as tension escalated in the air. Genzo, an older and more experienced man, tried to intervene, pleading for Nojiko not to get more involved in the situation. He understood the dangers of challenging the marines and was concerned about the potential consequences for the island's safety. "Nojiko, we need to avoid conflicts. Fighting against the marines will only make things worse. I know it's hard, but Nami fought for years to accumulate that money. We must act wisely to protect our community." Genzo tried to persuade, appealing to reason amid the imminent chaos. Nojiko, with tears in her eyes and her voice filled with indignation, continued to express her revolt in the face of the situation. "But she was doing it for us, risking her life for so many years. All for Arlong and his henchmen to take it away from her right now," she cried, revealing all the frustration and anger built up over the years. Nojiko's words struck Nezumi hard, and the mere insinuation of being called a dog by someone else infuriated him. Driven by wounded pride, Nezumi ordered his subordinates, "What? Who are you calling a dog? Shoot her." Immediately, one of the marines stepped forward from the ranks, wielding his weapon and aiming it directly at Nojiko, while the tense atmosphere on the beach reached its peak. "Nojiko." Ah! Bang! The shot went straight to Nojiko's heart. Seeing her death before her eyes, she could only think of her sister, hoping she was safe somewhere, anywhere she might be. A cry of horror echoed on the beach as the shot was fired, ready to pierce Nojiko's heart. A heavy silence followed the gun's explosion, and everyone witnessed the imminent tragedy before them as the girl closed her eyes to avoid seeing her death. However, no pain surged in Nojiko's chest. Instead, she felt enveloped by something unexpected. Was it a hug? Surprised and confused, Nojiko looked up, finding herself in the arms of an unknown man. He stared at her with a seductive and cheerful smile, as if he were very pleased and relieved with the situation. Nojiko murmured, still stunned by the unexpected turn of events. The man, revealing himself as Luffy, looked at her with enthusiasm. "So, you're Nami's sister? She never told me she had such a beautiful sister," he exclaimed, revealing his relaxed and uninhibited nature amid the dramatic scene. The contrast between the tense situation and Luffy's laid-back attitude brought an unusual element to the narrative. Chapter 59, Kokoyasi Village 2. Kokoyasi Village, East Blue. "So you're Nami's sister? She never told me she had such a beautiful sister," Luffy said cheerfully, like a bandit finding something quite attractive. While the Navy had its ship anchored on Kokoyasi Beach, Captain Nezumi led a secret operation to steal the treasure accumulated by Nami over the years. As the Marines kept the local population under control, Nezumi, accompanied by his subordinates, began to search Nami's house and its surroundings for gold. The streets were filled with sailors searching houses, confiscating goods, and instilling widespread fear in the community. However, in the midst of this dishonest operation, the situation escalated when Nojiko, Nami's sister, vehemently protested against the injustice that was happening. Captain Nezumi, irritated by the interference, ordered them to shoot her as a form of punishment. It was in this moment of chaos that Luffy, the fearless captain of the Straw Hats, appeared out of nowhere, dodging the bullet aimed at Nojiko. His unexpected arrival brought an element of surprise to the scene, interrupting the operation planned by Nezumi. While the sailors tried to process Luffy's presence, Nezumi saw his gold-stealing operation being threatened. The Straw Hat Pirates captain, with his relaxed expression and defiant attitude, was about to change the course of events, triggering an imminent confrontation between the pirates and the Navy on the peaceful Kokoyasi Island. An intriguing silence permeated the environment, leaving everyone bewildered by the unexpected arrival. The unknown man, seemingly unharmed after being shot, was now engaged in a conversation with Nojiko, openly flirting as if the previous event were insignificant. "Who are you?" Captain Nezumi inquired, being the first to break the silence, expressing surprise at the man's appearance. "Can't you see I'm talking to this lady here? Don't bother me." Luffy responded with a displeased look, redirecting his attention back to Nojiko. Luffy's nonchalant response provoked Captain Nezumi's anger, who exploded in indignation at the absurdity of the situation. Captain Nezumi, with his face contorted by surprise and anger, shouted at Luffy. "Tell me who you are and why you're interfering with the Navy's work. Men, get ready to shoot him." Instantly, all available Marines aimed their guns at Luffy. Others, who were busy digging in the orange groves, abandoned their tools to grab their rifles stored nearby, preparing for the possible imminent conflict. Luffy, in response, maintained his bold and relaxed smile, as if he were just engaging in casual conversation. Ignoring the evident pressure of the moment, he spoke. "Haha, I see you won't let me spend some time with this lovely woman, huh? So, let me introduce myself. I'm Monkey D. Luffy, the man who will rule the seas, the one who doesn't care about the Navy, the world government, celestial pigs, and those old guys known as the Five Elders and Four Emperors." The echo of Luffy's words hung in the tense air as the imminent confrontation unfolded on Kokoyasi Island. The silence was broken only by the distant sound of waves breaking on the beach, providing an irregular soundtrack for the scene unfolding between the fearless pirate and the determined Navy. "Captain Nezumi, did I hear correctly? He really said that? He didn't call the celestial dragons heavenly pigs, did he? Where did this madman come from? I don't know what's more bizarre, his first statement or the second." The sailors began to murmur among themselves, astonished and perplexed, exchanging uncertain glances as they tried to process Luffy's bold words. Nezumi, Genzo, and Nojiko were also stunned, unable to hide the surprise stamped on their faces. "Captain Nezumi, do you think we should shoot him?" asked one Marine, looking confused. "Heavenly pigs, seriously?" muttered another sailor, shaking his head in disbelief. Luffy, on the other hand, remained unchanged, observing everyone's reaction with a relaxed and confident expression, as if he were enjoying the confusion he had caused. "You're a madman, eliminate him now!" Nezumi shouted, and everyone was ready to pull the trigger. "Wait!" Luffy shouted and let go of Nojiko, who was still speechless with all these sudden events. Everyone stopped stunned for a moment, not expecting this man to shout at them as if he were their commander. Nezumi was stunned before, but this reached an even higher peak, seeing that his men seemed to obey this stranger. "What do you think you're doing?" Nezumi exclaimed, irritated. "Relax, Captain Rat, I'm just making sure this lady doesn't get hurt. We don't want trouble with a citizen getting hurt, right?" Luffy replied, maintaining a relaxed smile. The sailors exchanged confused looks among themselves, while Nezumi tried to process the situation, his eyebrows furrowed with disbelief at Luffy's audacity. Luffy walked forward and crossed his arms in front of the group facing him. "What are you? I'm not your opponent, you should look up," Luffy announced, cutting off Nezumi's command at the last moment. "What are you saying? Do you think we'll fall for that, pirate? Let's kill him," said one of the sailors, returning to normalcy. However, something incredible happened among them at that moment. Boom! Before Nezumi could react or shoot at Luffy, a colossal rock plummeted from the sky, mercilessly crushing at least half a dozen sailors. What happened? What is this? They were crushed, like this? What the hell was that? Look to the sky. An angel. Did I die? She's so beautiful. It looks like she's lifting rocks with those strange claws. She's like those tails where a winged cupid throws love stones. What are you saying? They're arrows in those tails, not stones. And these stones are too big. They're increasing in size, they're not stones but giant rocks. Ah, run. Boom. She's trying to kill us. I don't want to die twice. Who said you're already dead? She's here to kill you once. Run. Boom. 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 The explosions continued, mercilessly crushing all the Marines in the open area, while Nami hurled rocks with her Garuda claws, removing them from the island's coast as she flew. The surreal and chaotic scene transformed into destruction and death, with the apparent avenging angel leaving everyone bewildered, trying to make sense of the absurd situation. "I'm so furious that I'll finish you all. First, you destroy my orange trees, then try to steal my treasure, and now Luffy flirts with my sister while I have to film him doing that? I need to vent all my anger." Nami shouted in the air, relentlessly throwing stones at the Marines. "Damn you, Luffy!" she yelled, flapping her wings to descend towards the ground. Boom. "Nami? Ha ha ha. I thought you'd never come down from the sky, you scared all those Marines. You should. Boom. Luffy barely had time to react when he took a punch from Nami, who emerged from the wreckage where she had landed. The impact echoed like thunder, leaving everyone stunned by the navigator's furious expression. Crack. Luffy flew at high speed towards a nearby rock, which exploded into pieces with a devastating impact. Nojiko and Genzo watched the scene in shock, as if witnessing a surreal nightmare. This is for making me see my sister almost dying and flirting with her right after, while I had to film all of this. Nami shouted angrily, releasing her emotions into the air with intensity. Ha 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 ha. No need to get so mad. Luffy started laughing, emerging from the wreckage as if he hadn't felt the slightest impact. The area around was marked by destruction, rocks, and dust suspended in the air, evidencing the strength of the collision. Nami. Nojiko finally snapped out of her stunned state. As she observed her sister, she noticed that she looked a bit different. The mischievous appearance was still there, but the now Nami had enormous wings. Nojiko witnessed her sister ruthlessly defeat at least 24 Marines, tossing a man like a doll against the rocks. The man emerged from the wreckage as if the punch that threw him hadn't caused the slightest damage. Nami, how did you acquire these powers, and where did you find this creature? Genzo commented, still processing the surreal situation. Monster. Nami, about to respond to her brother, was interrupted by the sound of the remaining Marines. To escape the flying rocks, they took cover in the house and hid under the orange trees. Nami couldn't simply attack these places, and the situation became even more bizarre. They seem to be afraid of you. Luffy commented playfully to the cat thief. Quiet, I'll have a little chat with you shortly. Nami said to Luffy and turned to the rest of the naval men. She raised her hands, and claws began to materialize in the air and flew directly for the necks of 8 hidden Marines, both inside the house and under the orange trees. Quickly, 8 bodies were lifted into the air by their necks in front of the woman with the commands of her hand. They struggled in fear, realizing their necks were being squeezed without being able to react, and they were almost losing consciousness. So, you wanted to steal from me, huh? Nami growled at the group. Please don't kill me. Some of them pleaded. It was Arlong. I can compensate you. If you spare me. Nezumi said, as one of the survivors of those enormous rocks, he begged for his life, offering everything he could to get out of here in one piece, cursing Arlong for making him try to steal from a monster like this woman. You want me to let you go? After all the evil you've done? Nami mocked. Wait, Nami. Nojiko quickly grabbed her sister's shoulder with pleading eyes. Nami, don't do this. I know they deserve it, but killing them in cold blood is beneath who you are. Nojiko didn't want Nami to become a cold-blooded killer in this way. Nami looked at her sister a bit disturbed. She didn't want Nojiko to be afraid of her. I guess you're right. Nami admitted, earning a relieved look from the 8 bodies suspended in the air. If it were me, I wouldn't be too happy about this. My captain will decide your fate when you wake up. Nami said, and with a hand movement, she threw them all to the ground, colliding forcefully and knocking them out the next moment. Nojiko sighed in relief and looked at Nami. I guess we have a lot to talk about, huh? She said and quickly went into the house with a trio following shortly after. Meanwhile, on the beach, the thunderous sound of cannon explosions echoed through the air as the Black Pearl unleashed a fierce bombardment against the marine ship anchored on the beach. Each explosion was like a resounding roar, shaking the surrounding environment. The deep rumble was accompanied by the sharp whistle of projectiles cutting through the air before hitting their target. The sky was tinted with dark smoke, and the impact of the explosions was visible, creating splashes of water and marine debris that soared into the air. The continuous sound of cannons firing created a chaotic symphony, filling the ears with a cacophony of deafening noises. With each explosion, the marine ship trembled, creaking and squealing under the relentless attack. The cannons of the Black Pearl fired in an impressive cadence, creating an atmosphere of chaos and destruction. The metallic sound of bullets hitting the hull of the target ship mixed with the roar of explosions, forming a concert of destruction that echoed across the beach and beyond. A moment later, 4 people were sitting at the kitchen table. Ha 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 ha. They seemed to be having fun at the beach, huh? Luffy laughed, hearing the sound of cannons. What are you guys doing? Ganzo asked alarmed, also hearing the explosions but not knowing what was happening. We're blowing up Captain Nezumi's marine ship. Nami answered simply. Nami, where did you find these people? Nojiko asked, bewildered by so many events. By the way, this drink is delicious. Would you like to join my crew by any chance? Luffy ignored her comment and looked at Nojiko, extending the invitation with a smile to the blue-haired woman. Don't ask my sister something like that out of nowhere. Nami yelled at Luffy. Ha 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 ha. Nami, where did you really find him? Is he your boyfriend or something? Nojiko, overcoming so many surprises, laughed when she heard their interaction. "I'm the captain and her husband." Luffy casually responded. "What do you mean, husband?" Nami had a comical expression on her face. "Husband? Who do you think you are to be her husband, brat?" The mayor shouted at Luffy indignantly. "Is this some kind of union? Like, we haven't gotten married yet, but it's not like that won't change in the future." Luffy said calmly. "Ha ha 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 ha. Nami, this is the first man you bring home, and he's so outrageous." Nojiko was having fun after so much tension and death just a moment ago. "He's not my husband. If he wants to marry me, I want 10 billion Baileys." Nami shouted, demanding it quickly. "So, this is how you repay my love and sacrifice for you, Nami? In the end, you just wanted my money." Luffy seemed to lament. "Stop pretending." Nami released her power, but Luffy didn't move, but Genzo beside her was thrown backward, falling unconscious the next moment. "Nami, how could you do this to him?" Nojiko was indignant with Nami's treatment of her husband, completely ignoring Genzo. Nami was speechless before her sister, believing in her captain's silver tongue so easily. Luffy, with a fake hurt expression, crossed his arms and sighed dramatically as he responded to Nojiko's indignation. "Look, Nojiko, I thought she would reciprocate her love for me. I'm always acting like a knight, a true romantic, but it seems like that's a thing of the past. Women nowadays don't seem to like that kind of thing much. Maybe I should move on and hope someone will love me someday. You know, a broken heart, a lonely soul." Luffy looked at the horizon with a theatrical and sad expression, as if he were starring in a tragic love story. Meanwhile, Nojiko beside him began to look at him with a mixture of compassion and curiosity, captivated by the melodramatic performance of the captain of the Straw Hat Pirates. Nami was stunned by this. "Ah. Poor thing." Nojiko, next to Luffy, stood up from the chair and approached him with a pitying expression, ready to console him in the fictitious sadness he portrayed. Nami, on the other hand, was stunned by Luffy's theatrical ability. Nojiko, embracing Luffy, seemed to offer genuine comfort, but the captain, with an unexpected move, lifted Nojiko in his arms, adding an even more unusual touch to the scene. "Ah!" Nojiko gave a surprised scream when she felt her body being placed over Luffy's. Luffy's unexpected boldness caught her off guard as she nestled into his lap. "Thank you, Nojiko. I didn't know Nami had such a good sister." Luffy expressed his gratitude while holding Nojiko intimately above him. Nojiko, still surprised, murmured. "You're so bold, Luffy. No wonder Nami seems to like you." "Only her?" Luffy smiled with his characteristic seductive grin, gazing at Nojiko in a captivating manner. Nojiko, in turn, was torn between perplexity and a slight blush on her cheeks. Luffy's theatrical ability surprised her, and his seductive look made the situation even more unusual. "I don't know. My sister might not like sharing her boyfriend," she said, showing a flirtatious smile. "But as you can see, it seems like she doesn't want me, however." Luffy leaned closer to Nojiko's face. "It gets really complicated for me. On one side, I have my sister's happiness, on the other, I have the man who saved my life like a Prince Charming, and now he's inviting me to be his princess? It's hard to decide like this." Nojiko, with her usual bold expression, now exhibited an intriguing mix of fascination and uncertainty. Her usually fearless eyes betrayed a glint of enchantment in the face of Luffy's casual seduction. As his words filled the space between them, she seemed captivated by the peculiar aura of the Straw Hat Pirates captain. "You." Luffy and Nojiko looked at Nami at this moment, as Nami seemed to have stayed quiet the whole time. She looked at this shameless man and woman while her sister was still on the lap of her womanizing captain, seemingly enjoying that contact, openly flirting as if it were a room, while they pretended she wasn't there the whole time. "Stop flirting with each other." Nami's furious shout echoed through the house, and she conjured a new claw in the air, unleashing a destructive attack that shattered the table. Luffy, as quick as ever, grabbing Nojiko by his side, jumped up, skillfully avoiding the impact of Nami's strike. Outside, debris from the explosion flew out of the house. Meanwhile, the Straw Hat group appeared, led by Yamato, who followed them with his haki. "They seem to have finished here," Kuina muttered, visibly stunned. Several bodies were scattered, crushed by stones outside the house, while more than half a dozen still breathed, although unconscious. "Luffy." The worried cry echoed through the air as the group approached the tumultuous scene. Boom. "Ha ha 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 ha. Stay still. And let go of my sister." Boom. "Ha ha ha ha, that was close, Nami. I'm going to kill you." Boom. 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 The sound of explosions echoed through the area as the clash between Nami and Luffy unfolded. Luffy laughed joyfully, seeming to enjoy the situation, while Nami, visibly furious, continued to launch her claws forcefully. The group outside could hear the screams and explosions, becoming intrigued by the intensity of the fight and wondering if the enraged Nami was the same person they knew. "What's happening in there?" Usopp asked, a little frightened by the noise and explosions. "Nami-sama looks so scary," Shirahoshi cried, watching the explosions with wide eyes. "We better see what's going on, there might be an enemy." Zoro agreed, taking the first steps toward the house. "Where are you going? How can you want to go home in front of us, when you walk back the way you came from the beach?" Kuina shouted indignantly at Zoro, who might even mistake the way to the house right in front of him. "I just made a little mistake," Zoro complained, as the group exchanged curious and concerned looks among themselves. Suspense hung in the air as everyone wondered what could be happening inside the house. "Let's go in," Yamato said, taking the first steps. "Zoro, just follow us," Usopp warned. All right," the swordsman grumbled. Chapter 60, Kokoyashi Village 3. Nami calmed down after a while, and the group was now gathered. The interior of the first floor of the house was destroyed, courtesy of the explosions and Nami's rage. "So you're Nami's sister, Nojiko-sama, you're so beautiful." Shirahoshi looked at Nojiko with admiration. She couldn't help but wish for an older sister after hearing Nami's story, even though it was mostly sad. She always had her sister to help her move forward. "Yes, and I can't believe I'm seeing a mermaid. I remember Belmere talking about them when we were kids, I never imagined seeing one here. You're so beautiful and innocent." Nojiko seemed quite open with Shirahoshi, who smiled at the blue-haired woman as she heard her. "Your sister is so mature, Nami." Kuina couldn't help but comment. Since Shirahoshi is of the same race as those who destroyed the sisters' lives many years ago, but she didn't seem to have any prejudice against the mermaid princess. "Yes, Nojiko is a very mature woman, but your sister is quite temperamental," Reiju said, looking around. The whole place was devastated where there should have been a living room and kitchen. "Zoro, never let me irritate Nami, leave that just for Luffy, understood?" Usopp murmured next to the swordsman, afraid of facing that same fury one day. "TSK." Zoro snorted. "Did Sister Nami do all this? She's so scary." The pirate hunters, Johnny and Yosaku, spoke with a bit of fear like Usopp. "Ow! Sharky. You don't need to be afraid of Nami-sama. She's so nice." Shirahoshi defended Nami from the frightened animals. "Luffy, what did you do here?" Yamato complained. "I didn't do anything. Just avoided the attacks," Luffy said calmly. This part of the house was completely destroyed. Broken furniture and cracked walls witnessed the havoc caused by Nami, who was trying to hit Luffy while he skillfully dodged with his sister, Nojiko, in his arms. Debris scattered on the floor, creating a chaotic scene that reflected the intensity of the confrontation between the navigator and the Straw Hat Pirates captain. "Anyway, I can't believe Marines could be so rotten," Kuina complained. "Have you already forgotten what they did at Base 16 when we destroyed and looted the place?" Reiju asked calmly. What did you do at Naval Base 16? Nojiko asked a bit indignant. "Nothing much, we just destroyed half the base with our ship cannons. I wanted to wipe it off the map, but that would have led to unnecessary slaughter." Luffy commented, a little dissatisfied with having to let go of the idea of blowing up a marine base. "Is this true, Nami?" her sister asked seriously. "Yes, I no longer belong to Arlong, I am a member of this crew, a member of the Straw Hat Pirates. We attacked the Marines and stole everything we could," she said confidently, earning many satisfied smiles from her comrades. "So, this is your pirate crew? Well, you can see they are quite unique." Nojiko couldn't help but be amazed, looking at the humans with each unique personality, a dog, a flying shark, and a beautiful mermaid all together. "You can join too if you want, you know. We need someone to take care of your sister." Luffy smiled and teased Nami. Nojiko, still processing the idea, responded cautiously. "That's a sudden invitation, Luffy. I'm not sure if I can just join a pirate crew." Luffy laughed and retorted. "Think of it as an offer of exciting adventures and freedom on the seas. Besides, it would be great to have someone like you with us. Give it some thought, Nojiko." "About that, I must think," she said with a small smile, dodging the question but playing along. "You." Nami huffed. "Anyway, let's get rid of Arlong. I want to do it before tonight because I want to have another feast." Luffy shared his thoughts, and Nojiko looked at him as if a second head had grown on his shoulder. "But a feast?" Yamato asked. "Of course, we're pirates, feasts are part of a pirate's daily life." Luffy smiled as he spoke. "Wait a moment. Do you want to get rid of Arlong?" Nojiko looked astonished at the tall man. "I don't, your sister is going to do that. I'll just make sure she does it right," Luffy declared, crossing his arms. "Nami?" You're not thinking. Nojiko was interrupted by her sister before she could continue. Don't worry, Nojiko, I'll win. Haven't you seen my strength? Nami said with some confidence. I have, but long. Nojiko tried to argue but was interrupted by Yamato. Oh, two fishmen outside, looking at the fallen bodies. Yamato said, making Luffy turn in that direction. Do you want to deal with that, Nami? He asked, and she nodded seriously. Nami wasted no more time and started walking among the broken furniture that she herself left that way and went out the door. There, two fishmen were trying to wake up the fallen marines. While the Straw Hat group tried to understand the chaotic situation after the explosions and looked for Ecchi, they observed from afar another group of villagers who kept their distance due to the massacre happening. The fight caught the attention of the whole village, but no one dared to approach. Nami approached the other group, casually stating their names after a certain distance. So it's you, Take and Shiaki, she said, capturing their attention. The villagers turned to Nami, leaving a unconscious Nezumi aside. Nami? You arrived on the island. What the hell happened here? Who killed them? One of the villagers quickly demanded. It was me. Nami replied coldly, interrupting her walk to face them. You? Stop kidding, Nami. You better spill it. When Arlong finds out, it won't be good for you. Shiaki said angrily. I'd love to see that happen, then. Nami retorted. She raised her hands and sliced the air in front of her. A gust of wind hit them next, catching them off guard and throwing them against some fallen rocks in the area. The shocked expressions on their faces reflected the disbelief in the face of the ability they never expected to witness. Ah! That? Nami is a devil fruit user. They exclaimed upon the collision, getting up with astonishment and a touch of fear in their eyes. Before they could articulate anything more, it was too late. In the next strike, they were knocked out as Nami threw them again, ensuring their defeat. Yes, I am a devil fruit user, and I intend to destroy you with this power. Nami murmured, staring at the two Tritons lying on the ground. The determination in her eyes left no doubt that she was determined to use her abilities to face any threat. Should we go now, Luffy? She turned and found the crew looking at her with admiration, especially her stunned sister, who saw Nami defeat two members of Arlong with just a wave of her hands. Let's first get rid of the Marines. Let's throw them to the ex-captives on the beach so they can mete out their own justice. Also, I want to check on the Black Pearl and bring it to the ship so it won't be stolen. We might have helped the people trapped in the Marine base, but that doesn't mean they can't try to steal from us at the first opportunity. Luffy said, and they quickly grabbed the 8 Marines and headed to the beach where they landed. The villagers who witnessed Nami taking down the Tritons ran to the village to spread the news. Some time later, the crew saw that Luffy was right. After the crew left the pirate ship, many ex-captives staged a mutiny and tried to steal the Black Pearl to leave the island. Surprisingly, Hugo prevented this from happening, standing in the way of anyone who tried to do something and taking down many of them. Luffy appeared and went to talk to the big man first. Hugo, this is a surprise. Thanks for defending our ship. Luffy couldn't help but express his gratitude. This is the least I can do. I'm not the type to take advantage of my saviors, he said. Even so, you have my thanks, Luffy said to Hugo and turned to the people he had helped once. With a cold gaze, he spoke as the crowd began to step back, especially those who organized and suggested the mutiny. We helped you, even though it wasn't our real intention. I expected at least some respect, but you tried to take our things at the first opportunity you had. Luffy looked with a stern eye at everyone, not everyone, especially the women, as more male slaves were involved in this mutiny. His crew was at a distance from him, observing this scene, also not liking to hear this and seeing the situation of people they had liberated. I don't intend to be a kind person next time. If this happens again, I intend to act as we did with the Marines, Luffy said angrily. Another type of person that Luffy doesn't like is those who bite the hand that fed them at some point. It may not be the type he hates the most, but he also has no love for this kind. Luffy not only expressed it in words, but purple flames appeared on his body and exploded with fury circulating around him without burning his clothes. The sound of flames was violent and heard throughout that part of the beach, causing the crowd to retreat in fear and with the increasing heat. So you better think very well before attacking us next time, because just as you have the freedom to try to steal from us, there are consequences, and we have the freedom to retaliate, and I guarantee it's better not to make me choose that option, Luffy said amidst the flames like a demon from the abyss. I'm sorry. We won't do it again, sir, please forgive us. An old man, one of those who joined the mutiny, begged for mercy immediately. They didn't witness the fight against the Marines when they were liberated, so they thought it was a normal group that had a ship to end the Marine base. That's why they wanted the Black Pearl and its treasures to live better. But now, seeing the capabilities of this man, they realize they messed with someone very dangerous. Don't worry, I don't need your words to protect my ship now. I'll take the Black Pearl with me. Luffy said and looked at his crew, accompanied by Nojiko as well. Nami will fight against Arlong. Zoro, you can take Ecchi on our ship. Johnny and Yozak could bring the other unconscious fishmen too. I want Shirahoshi to judge them once Nami finishes them off. Luffy said, surprising everyone, especially the mermaid herself. Me? Luffy-sama, shouldn't Nami seek revenge? She asked uncertainly. They are her people. Nami has the right to revenge, but if she doesn't want to kill them, which I think she might not, you will have the final decision from there. Luffy said, and Nami nodded, trusting the mermaid. As soon as Zoro took Ecchi off their black ship, Luffy touched the Black Pearl to shrink its size to the point where he could hold the miniature ship in his hand now. Let's go to Arlong Park. It's time to end this. Luffy announced, and everyone nodded, following him as he left. And you, Hugo, thank you for your help once again. If you're still interested in my earlier proposal, look for me until tonight's party because we'll be leaving early in the morning. Luffy announced and received a nod from Hugo with that and some questioning looks from his crew, unaware of the proposal Luffy made to Hugo. One more thing, if you cause any more trouble, especially with the village of this island, it won't be me who takes care of you, it will be Nami, a resident here. Trust me, I saw her kill 24 Marines before coming here. She can be worse than me. Luffy said and turned to leave. Nami, throw the Marines into the crowd and let them decide what to do with them. Luffy announced, and Nami did exactly that with her claws. That's brutal. Nojiko couldn't help but comment. Well, they were enslaved by those uniformed people, let them have the chance to get revenge. It's better than just killing them. Luffy shrugged. So they set off, the Marines were awakened by an angry crowd surrounding them on the beach. After that, the whole group went to Arlong Park, passing through Nami's village. The citizens who had already heard about the events after those strange noises coming from Nami's hill noticed a large group carrying some unconscious fishmen on their shoulders, alarming them. They asked what was happening here. Is it true? Nami came back and took down Arlong's people? Someone shouted, and soon everyone was looking at the group passing through the middle of the village, moving forward without caring about the questioning and stunned looks. Nojiko. What's happening? They said there was a conflict at your house with the Marines. Someone shouted. Nami? You're back? Who are these people? Why did they harm Arlong's men? Nami, hearing this, looked at the citizen who asked directly to her and said confidently. We are the Straw Hat Pirates, and we are going to end Arlong's reign and his crew. Nami announced, leading in front of Luffy. You can't be serious, can you? A woman trembled with this. Of course, I promise you that Arlong will never be a problem again after today. She announced. Come on, this is a good scene for a classical music piece like One Piece's OST, Overtaken. 22222. Luffy smiled, imagining the music playing in his mind as they walked with Nami in the lead. More and more people came to see Nami's strange group and started following them. The entire village followed them as they moved away and approached the domains of the fishmen on one side of the coast. Is she really going to do this? What happened? Do you believe the story that she can do magic? I don't know, but she looks very different, and this group is quite strange. They don't seem to be afraid of Arlong. Nami seems confident about this, even said she would fight Arlong himself. Nojiko can't let this happen. Her sister will only be killed like this. Someone stop her. It's too late, she's already in front of the gates. Stop her. Nami. Nami didn't care and let the power of the wind circulate her hand as she leaned back and punched the gate along with the wall of Arlong Park. Boom. A moment earlier. Where is Ecchi? Why hasn't he returned yet? In the crowd of fishmen in front of a sitting Arlong, Kirubi said, crossing his arms. I don't know, Arlong. He hasn't shown up since he went to look for Momo. Someone from the crowd of fishmen spoke. Take and Shiaki went to talk to the Marines, but they're also late. What the hell is happening today? Strange and concerning events all day long. It seems like something drastic is going to happen on a day I should be getting even richer with Nami's money. Arlong growled, his bad luck and negative feelings growing inside him. As soon as he spoke, something unexpected happened. Boom. An explosion caught their attention. The main gate flew from the explosion and impact, hitting some fishmen who were in front of Arlong. What? WHODID this? Guys, are you okay? The gate went flying. Craig. Is he dead? He was crushed by debris. They looked at their fallen comrades in disbelief and turned their gaze to where the gate used to be. There stood someone they never imagined seeing like this. While keeping her fist still raised, she stared at them and spoke in a loud tone. Hello, Arlong. It's me, Nami, and I'm here to finish you. Nami said confidently, facing more than 40 fishmen in front of her. Chapter 61, Kokoyasi Village 4. Boom. A resounding explosion echoed through Arlong Park, capturing everyone's attention. The main gate was sent flying due to the explosion and impact, hitting some fishmen who were in front of Arlong. What? WHODID this? Guys, are you okay? The gate went flying. Craig. Is he dead? Was he crushed? They looked at their fallen comrades, incredulous, and turned their gazes to where the gate used to be. There, a figure stood out, fist still raised after the impressive feat. Hello, Arlong. It's me, Nami, and I'm here to end you. Nami declared confidently, facing over 40 Tritons before her eyes. Her courage resonated in the tense air of Arlong Park as the fishmen prepared for the imminent confrontation. A dense silence enveloped Arlong Park, echoing through the area as Nami's words materialized in the air. The group of Tritons stared at her, trying to comprehend what had just been said. My ears are at the same level as humans, inferior? Did I hear that right? Absurd, is that really Nami? Did she really say that? Nami? No one knew for sure who was the first to speak, but the initial disbelief began to dissipate. What's this, Nami? Is it really you? Did you destroy the gate? Arlong growled, his tone laden with disbelief. Yes. And as I said, I am here to put an end to your reign, Arlong. Nami affirmed, gaining some confidence. Part of her was nervous, but she knew Luffy was watching, ready to intervene if anything went wrong. Where did you get this confidence? Human? Mocked Chu, his disdain echoing around. I think Nami is different. She couldn't just punch the gate before. What happened to her? Someone in the group questioned, raising a lingering question in the air. It's true, did Nami eat some kind of fruit? Another inquired. Is that possible? So Nami wants to defeat us now, after gaining a bit of strength. Still just a human, and we're over 40. Shay ha ha ha. Arlong began to laugh loudly, casting a mocking glance in Nami's direction. However, his demeanor darkened with his next words. I thought we had an agreement, Nami. Seems like you humans aren't trustworthy at all. He taunted, provoking a disbelieving look from Nami, who couldn't believe their words after everything that had happened. Speaking of hypocrites, who sent the Marines to take all my treasure? I could say that every fishman is untrustworthy too, but I was fortunate to meet a mermaid who changed my opinion about your race. Unfortunately, that didn't make you, bottom feeders of the sea, any better than you already are. And that's why I'm going to end you. Nami snarled, still incredulous at Arlong's audacity to speak of trust there. You met a mermaid. Where? Some Triton asked, curious. Nami couldn't have left the East Blue during the time she was away, meaning there was a mermaid in that sea without them knowing. It was quite intriguing. No matter what you think, Nami. Arlong growled, ignoring the question about the mermaid and continued. As soon as I beat her here, I'll go to your village and kill all the humans there, making you watch everything, helpless, while you beg for mercy. He added with malice. Don't worry, that won't happen because you'll fall today, you and your entire crew. Nami had a slight tremor at Arlong's words, but she regained confidence the next moment and announced these words with wings appearing on her back. Wings? What is this? Someone shouted, but they didn't have time to receive an answer because Nami acted the next moment. Bending down, Nami punched the air in front of them. Although she had her devil fruit for only a day, she had trained tirelessly with her captain since then. Luffy taught her to fly, materialize and control her claws, create hurricane-shaped wind spheres, and made her learn to release vacuum explosions. She punched without moving from her spot, hitting nothing but empty space. Initially, they looked at it without understanding, but soon everyone felt the danger of Nami's fist when she struck the air. Green energy erupted from that fist, forming an imposing sphere made of gray wind, 4 meters in diameter in front of Nami. Quickly, she launched herself in the direction indicated by the fist, catching the Tritons off guard, giving them no time to react. The sphere, composed of dark and green wind, advanced at high speed, cutting through the ground as if it were digging as it moved. What? Get out of the... Crack. Boom. Before anyone could react and escape, the sphere hit Arlong and everyone around, throwing them to the opposite side after exploding in their midst. The blow lacked the elemental effects of fire, ice, or the sharp characteristic of wind, but it emitted a wave of force, giving the sensation that an immense battleship ran over them at the moment of impact. Arlong. Guys. The fishmen who were further away and relatively unscathed, besides being hit by comrades flying in their direction or by the debris caused by the explosion, shouted in disbelief as they witnessed their comrades and captain being thrown through the air like kites, each going in a different direction. Arlong, powerless against Nami's attack, remained seated, not knowing what to do. The impact hit him head-on, projecting him to the opposite side, where he harshly exploded against the wall, in the exact place where Luffy originally punched him during the construction. As this chaos unfolded, a surprised chorus echoed from the entrance of the broken gate, where everyone watched the fight. This chorus emanated from the villagers, some of whom, alongside Luffy, couldn't contain their joy at the turn of events. What is this? Did Nami do that? Look at that sphere. What kind of power is this? Is she changed? Wait, she broke the gate, right? This woman is amazing. Go, Nami. Some villagers exchanged glances, exchanging expressions of surprise and astonishment. The news of what Nami did spread quickly, and many could hardly believe their eyes in the face of the spectacle of power they were witnessing. Nami-sama is so strong. Shirahoshi exclaimed excitedly. Nami. Nojiko was still wondering if she was somehow still dreaming, as not even in her wildest fantasies could she see Nami easily throwing Arlong to the wall on the other side. Can't we fight too, Luffy? Zoro said dissatisfied, having to watch the fight from there. No, this fight is Nami's, just like no one interfered in your battle with Mihawk, no one should interfere with Nami. Luffy crossed his arms and smiled proudly at his navigator, surprising his enemies and being relentless. However, there's something I want to do to make Nami's fight easier. Yamato, do something to prevent the fishmen from escaping, you know what I mean. Luffy announced. Yes. Yamato said and went into the sea without anyone noticing. Everyone else besides the crew was looking at Arlong Park and the spot where Nami exploded with this mysterious power. Incredible. A villager witnessing this scene said incredulously. Was Nami always this strong? Of course not, but she definitely ate a devil fruit. What? Fruits exist? That's unbelievable, look how strong she became. I thought it was a legend too, but look at this, it's undeniable after what we saw. Nami can defeat him. Yes, we can finally be rid of the fishmen. Nami. You can do it. We're rooting for you, Nami. Beat Arlong and his crew. Free us, Nami. The citizens who always treated Nami with disdain once, pretending to do so to spare her from sacrificing herself for them, finally saw some hope here, one that Nami could fight against Arlong and set them free. Nami. A new voice was heard shouting, making the crowd turn around at that moment. Genzo had woken up under a pile of debris in Nami's house. None of the Straw Hats noticed him when they were at the sister's house except Yamato. Nami, Nojiko, and Luffy seemed to forget about him, and when the mayor woke up and saw that no one was around, he came running here when he didn't find anyone at the girl's house or the village. Nami. Stop this. You don't need to sacrifice yourself for us to the point of fighting Arlong alone. I'll help you myself. He announced, going forward immediately, horrified to see how Nami alone was now facing Arlong. Stay put, old man. Someone stopped him. Don't get involved in this fight, you'll only get in the girl's way. Let her fight, trust Nami. We'll just be a burden to her in this fight. Trust Nami, Genzo-san. While they held the mayor back from advancing into Nami's fight, the girl in question looked back a bit moved after hearing people cheering for her. People. She murmured. Boom. An explosion echoed from the spot where Arlong had been thrown moments before. As he emerged from the wreckage, furious, he turned to the majority of his men who were still standing. Nami. I will make you pay for this. Arlong snarled, issuing an order immediately after. Get her, I don't care anymore if you kill her, just kill her. Arlong spared no words, inciting his men to an even greater frenzy. Completely ignoring the possibility of casualties among his own subordinates, he encouraged a ruthless reaction against Nami. I won't let you, declared Nami with determination. With visible confidence, she rose into the air with the help of her newly acquired wings. Gracefully leaning forward, Nami prepared to launch her next attack against the furious crowd advancing towards her, armed to the teeth. Before the fishmen could run up to her, they couldn't react. Nami, as if unleashing the fury of harpies, materialized sharp claws in her hands, bathing them in an intense green light. Flapping her wings fearlessly, she advanced towards the crowd with overwhelming speed. The surprise on the faces of the fishmen lasted no more than an instant as Nami was upon them in a matter of seconds, her harpy claws cutting through the air with lethal precision. Nami, enveloped in fury and newly acquired abilities, delivered her blows with surgical precision. Her harpy claws, glowing with intense green light, sliced through the air like sharp blades, leaving luminous trails as they advanced. Each movement was choreographed, a dance of destruction executed with deadly grace. She hit vital points of the fishmen, dodging their desperate attacks while slashing with supernatural agility. The cutting sound of the claws meeting scales echoed through the air, blending with the cries of pain from the fishmen. Amidst the fierceness of the confrontation, Nami demonstrated newly discovered mastery, combining agility, precision, and strength. Her attack, once unthinkable for those who knew her as a peaceful navigator, revealed a new facet of her determination to protect what was important to her. Each blow told a story of resistance and revenge, echoing through the village amidst the chaos of battle. She cut me. What is this? Stop her. Ah. This cuts. Someone stop those claws. The claws were wielded with skill, finding their target in a group of 10 fishmen. Nami, agile as a dancer, used her newly discovered mobility to ruthlessly slash them. The fishmen, in turn, could do nothing more than be powerless in the face of the ferocity of the attack. Guys! Kirubi exclaimed, his eyes widening as he witnessed what was happening around him. The group of fishmen, who once belittled the human as weak, was now tossed into the air after being cut by the fearless Nami. Shoot, shoot at her! Someone shouted, and a group of fishmen hastily grabbed their weapons. Facing the imminent threat, Nami raised her hands above her head. A swirling sphere began to form above her, gaining intensity every second. Garuda, devastating tornado! She exclaimed. As she brought her hands down, the sphere expanded, turning into a gray and green tornado of an impressive 8 meters in height. The vortex spun furiously at the center of the area, advancing in the direction Nami had pointed. A kind of hurricane? I can't aim the gun with this wind. Run, it's coming towards us. Ah! The fishmen screamed, desperately trying to escape the violent force of nature that was rapidly approaching. Arlong, help us. I'm being thrown. Arlong stared in disbelief as his fellow Britons were caught by the attack, tossed into the air by the force of the gray wind with green glows. Some were thrown out, while most spun within the imposing tornado, calling for help amid the deafening roar of wind and destruction. The hurricane, carrying more than 20 Tritons with it, spared nothing as it circled through Arlong Park, devastating everything in its path. Finally, it stopped in front of the largest building, where 20 unconscious bodies lay on the ground. An extensive swath of destruction cut through the park, marking the trail left by the tornado. Even the main building, which escaped the circulating wind, had its plates and windows shattered and torn off by the hurricane. Nami! Arlong roared, unable to bear seeing his comrades defeated and his park reduced to wreckage in this way. You guys! Arlong bellowed with his remaining men. Go to the sea and throw water at her. She's a devil fruit user, we can weaken her with seawater. He issued the order to his remaining companions, and they had a moment of realization. Lord Arlong. Someone said with apprehension. Arlong looked interrogatively at him. The sea. The sea is frozen. He said with the same desperate voice. Everyone turned their eyes to where the sea was just a moment ago. Everything was frozen, as if Admiral Aokiji were present. Even after so many strange events today, now Nami, who has become so powerful, and the sea freezes without anyone knowing why. What must she have done for someone else? What the hell is happening here? Arlong said, visibly lost. Chapter 62, Kokoyasi Village 5. The sea. The sea is frozen. He said with the same voice shouted in despair. Everyone looked to where the sea had been until a moment ago. Everything was frozen, as if Admiral Aokiji were here. Even after so many strange events today, now Nami, who became so powerful, and the sea freezes without anyone knowing why. What must have she done for someone else? What the hell is happening here? Arlong said, bewildered. Seeing the frozen sea, Arlong could only clench his fists in frustration. His gaze then turned to Nami. Let's face it together. We can still defeat her. Let's end this human. Arlong said, standing up and encouraging his companions, indicating that he would join the group. Yes. The remaining fishmen shouted, gaining a new determination as they grabbed their firearms and blades. Nami looked at all of them with the same determined eyes, ready to face them. Breathing a little heavily, she struggled with endurance because even with all the newly acquired power, she still didn't have much stamina. After using many attacks that consumed her energy, she muttered to herself. I need to defeat him, I can do this. All spectators turned their attention to what would be the final battle, about to unfold before them. Will Nami-sama be okay? Shira Hoshi asked with a worried expression. Trust Nami, if she's in real danger, we'll intervene. Luffy stated. What should we do with these fishmen, Luffy? Johnny asked Ecchi and the other two who had just awakened. Leave them there to watch the fight. Let's see what we can do with them once Nami finishes with Arlong. Luffy said, slapping the dazed people in the face. Hey! What did you say, human? Arlong won't let this pass. One of them shouted. Look ahead. Arlong is being defeated by Nami. Luffy declared, making them realize for the first time where they were, in a heavily destroyed Arlong Park, while half of their companions lay on the ground. Hey! Arlong, everyone! Ecchi shouted in concern, but no one paid attention, everyone was focused on the upcoming battle. Attack! Arlong ordered, launching water droplets with his hands while his companions ran towards Nami, some shot at the girl. Instead of gaining distance, Nami went straight for the group, dodging water droplets and bullets while gaining speed as she flapped her wings. Closing her fists, She managed to approach the first and punch the first fishman that appeared. Garuda, vacuum blast punch. She shouted. Boom. By uttering the words Garuda, vacuum blast punch, Nami channeled her energy, forming a fist charged with power. The ensuing impact was spectacular, a deafening boom echoed through Arlong Park. The ground trembled with the intensity of the explosion, and a shockwave spread, creating cracks in the ground and raising dust clouds. The fishmen near the epicenter were thrown into the air like puppets, their bodies spinning uncontrollably like unrestrained kites. The surrounding area was impregnated with the smoke from the explosion, temporarily obscuring vision and creating a tense atmosphere. As the debris cleared, revealing the destruction caused by the attack, Nami showed no hesitation. Her wings flapped even more vigorously, propelling her towards the stunned fishmen. Seeing that they had no choice, her enemies attacked the Straw Hat Navigator again, and the fight began anew. Nami executed agile and graceful movements, like a deadly dance. Her wings beat to the rhythm of the battle, creating air currents that made the fishmen waver. She glided among the enemies, leaving trails of green light with her sharp claws as she was surrounded. Bang! A fishman tried to attack her with a spear, but Nami anticipated the move, elegantly dodging and slashing him with her claws. Boom! Another fishman tried to surprise her from behind, but Nami spun in the air, creating a small sphere of wind that protected her as she launched her claws in his direction. Bang! A barrage of bullets was fired in her direction, but with agility, Nami avoided each projectile, dancing through the battlefield. Boom! With a quick movement, she conjured a sharp wind chain that cut through a row of fishmen, leaving them stunned before she finished with a precise blow. Bang! A group of fishmen approached, but Nami, harnessing the power of the wind, created a barrier of air that pushed them away before diving among them with her claws, creating a series of precise cuts. The battle unfolded like an intricate choreography, a chaotic dance of agile movements, meticulously controlled explosions, and precise cuts, all orchestrated by Nami's unparalleled skill. With each deafening roar of a boom or bang, she responded with a display of ability and power that defied expectations, maximizing her newly acquired capabilities. "Is that Nami?" exclaimed Genzo, wide-eyed, surprised by the girl's skill. Even though he had already seen some of her power, her vision of destroying Arlong Park's ground was still unbelievable. "I've never seen her fight like this before. She's amazing," Johnny commented, with a mix of surprise and admiration. Yozaku, watching closely, murmured, "These fishmen have no idea what hit them." Meanwhile, some villagers were commenting among themselves, expressing amazement at Nami's transformation and the chaos unfolding in Arlong Park. "Nami is tearing them apart. I didn't know she was so powerful. This is insane. She's facing fishmen as if it's the most natural thing in the world and winning." The fight continued, and the spectators' reactions were a mix of fascination and bewilderment at Nami's extraordinary display of power. The sounds of explosions and gunfire echoed through the environment as Nami moved with deadly grace. Even in the storm of water droplet shots and firearms, she persisted, advancing tirelessly. Although some of these attacks managed to reach her, no projectile or charge could penetrate her now notably strengthened and resistant body. The pain, an inevitable result of these impacts, became almost a distant echo in her determination, acting as a kind of anesthesia that propelled her through the fight. Every punch thrown by Nami was a controlled explosion, covering significant areas of the battlefield. Meanwhile, Arlong watched from afar, helplessly witnessing the defeat of his comrades. The park was impregnated with the echo of explosions, leaving the fishmen unconscious and severely injured, victims of Nami's controlled fury. "Nami! You damn human!" Arlong's fierce growl echoed as he relentlessly advanced toward the girl after the dust settled a bit. "Arlong! Your time has come!" Nami retorted firmly. Even despite the visible wounds acquired during the fight amidst the fishmen, she faced her worst enemy with some confidence in her eyes. "Human!" Arlong roared, displaying his sharp teeth as he advanced in a furious attack. Nami, despite her skill in dodging, began to feel an overwhelming exhaustion taking over her in this encounter. Her once agile and precise movements became slower and heavier. The wings that supported her began to gradually dissipate, as if the life force were being drained from her body after fighting for so long. With each attempt to dodge Arlong's attacks, Nami's fatigue became more evident. Her movements, now compromised by exhaustion, were no longer as efficient. It was in this moment of vulnerability that Arlong, with a ruthless roar, reached her and fiercely bit her shoulder. "Ah!" The cry of pain echoed as Nami felt Arlong's piercing bite on her shoulder. "I will get revenge on you." Even in agony, Nami gathered her last reserves of energy, clenching her fists and delivering an explosive vacuum punch against Arlong, using the little power she had left. Boom! Arlong didn't have time to dodge the attack and felt the impact, being thrown like a puppet to the other side and colliding brutally with his oriental mansion. "Nami, exhausted and with intense pain in her bleeding shoulder, knelt on the battlefield. The effort to avenge Arlong took its toll, leaving her vulnerable. Some conscious fishman aimed at Nami at this moment. Bang! 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 4 shots echoed in the air, each finding its target in the fishman threatening Nami. Usopp, the skilled marksman of the Straw Hats, was strategically positioned at the entrance of Arlong Park. Holding his high-tech rifle, he didn't hesitate to eliminate the enemies targeting his weakened companion. The projectiles, propelled by the advanced precision of the weapon, flew accurately, hitting the fishman in vital points and neutralizing the imminent threat. Usopp's dexterity with his high-tech rifle was evident in the speed and effectiveness of the shots, ensuring Nami's safety in the face of imminent danger. As soon as Luffy instructed him, he was ready to save his companion who was in her weakened state at that moment. Crack! Arlong emerged from the house, a wounded and mutilated specter. He lacked teeth, and his right arm hung loosely, supported only by the shoulder. The damage caused by Nami's devastating attack was evident in his weakened form, a sight that contrasted with the Triton's usual ferocity. The focused shockwave of air had left severe marks on his robust body. Facing Nami at a defiant distance, Arlong couldn't hide the hatred in his eyes. Resentment boiled in the atmosphere as he prepared for the final confrontation. "Arlong, I will defeat you," declared Nami, though her voice betrayed her fragility. "I will not allow that, Nami. I will end you here, as I should have done many years ago, just as I did with your mother." Arlong roared, revealing the depth of his malice. "What did you say?" Nami was infuriated by this, more than anything, thinking of her mother and how Arlong slaughtered her like an animal. "Yes, I will kill her like I did with your mother." I still remember the desperate look on that human's face trying to save the pathetic lives of 2 children. "But once I kill you, I will go after your sister and all the humans on this island. Inferior beings should not want to fight against our superior race, the fishmen." He screamed like a madman, as he was the only one standing, and many members of his group were dead with this attack. He had the same feeling he had when facing Admiral Kizaru imposingly many years ago, so he was practically mentally disturbed and spoke with all his hatred for the human race. Everyone who heard this had mixed feelings. The villagers mostly felt fear from these words, hearing what would happen if Nami couldn't defeat Arlong, but many expressed disgust with it, hoping that Nami would kill him right there. Are they really that bad? Shirahoshi couldn't believe what she heard, with alarmed and frightened eyes. "Yes, Princess, their minds are infected with this kind of ideology. It was this same ideology that killed your mother," Luffy said, earning a disbelieving look from the mermaid. "Sharky? That's true, Luffy-sama? But I don't understand," she said uncertainly but very shaken. "Your mother wanted to bring your people to the surface to coexist with our race. That was the dream of Queen Itohime, but some people didn't like that idea." Luffy began without taking his eyes off the insane Arlong. "Your mother was murdered, and I know you know who did it." Luffy spoke, causing a shrink from the princess with those words, and he continued. "However, what you weren't aware of is that this murderer is also contaminated with this ideology that fishmen are superior to humans. This damn mentality only serves to further distance your people from coexisting with humans on the surface. That's why I believe this is the biggest challenge that Fishman Island faces right now," Luffy said calmly, pointing to the unbalanced Arlong for him to continue. "He is the mentor of this idea, casting a shadow over your kingdom that cost your mother's life, and the Fishman Island is being corroded and threatened by this kind of thinking. In the near future, it may find itself on the brink of destruction," Luffy asserted, receiving incredulous looks, especially from the mermaid. Shirahoshi began to respond, but was abruptly interrupted. "Nami looks different." Yamato, who had returned a short time ago after freezing the sea, suddenly expressed her observation. She was honing her haki to sense emotions, and although still far from perfection, Yamato could sense the emotional turmoil emanating from Nami at that moment. Luffy immediately turned his gaze to Nami, who remained kneeling. He still kept a safe distance from Arlong, inside the mansion, as he planned to discuss important matters with the mermaid. "We should help her, she's already so exhausted," Reiju expressed, watching the navigator in a lamentable state. She's crying," Nojiko exclaimed with great concern. Nami, overwhelmed, heard those words. No one knew, but she was facing a panic attack, flooded with memories that she always tried to forget. Arlong brought back the moment when her mother was killed before her eyes, triggering a crisis while she was in a state of extreme vulnerability, leaving her consumed by despair. "She's having one of those attacks," Nojiko exclaimed, and Luffy looked at her with concern as she quickly explained. "She has anxiety attacks when the memories of that day when our mother was killed come back," Nojiko explained before anyone could react. "Isn't that bad?" Usopp nervously asked. Ouch. Ouch. Chiaochu also showed concern. "We need to act," Arlong is starting to move. Shay ha 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 ha. In the end, you're just a weak human, Nami, just like your mother. No matter how many powers you have, in the end, you will have the same fate as the poor and useless woman I killed many years ago. Arlong laughed like a madman as he approached Nami. That won't happen, Kuina declared, preparing to use her new weapon. Of course not, Zoro said, drawing his blade slightly from its sheath as well. Nami is acting strange, I feel like something terrible is going to happen. Yamato warned Luffy, who raised an eyebrow. There was no way Arlong could harm Nami with him there, about to act, as Luffy was flexing his feet for that. The information caught Luffy by surprise, seeing that Nami was facing her traumas with a panic and anxiety attack. He didn't know that the trauma from the childhood tragedy could cause psychological problems for Nami in this way. However, he also recognized that he shouldn't be surprised. This is a real world, not an anime. Of course, people would have their problems and face psychological leviathans with some terrible memories in their minds, no matter how strong they were. He understood that even in a place filled with physical strength and extraordinary abilities, people can still carry deep emotional scars. Nami remained kneeling, tears streaming down her face as Arlong's cruel words unleashed a storm of emotions within her. Anger, hatred, fear, despair, and sadness collided within her being. They were not just memories but a dormant monster inside her, stirring with fury and wanting to break free. Raising her gaze, Nami's eyes began to glow in an intense yellow hue as wind started to circulate around her, tossing debris as if they were mere leaves. Arlong's laughter ceased, his steps faltered upon witnessing these haunting changes. Nami, although physically drained, saw her powers resurging before her. Arlong, in turn, felt a terrible premonition, a true imminent danger, an undeniable sense that death was approaching. A monster within Nami was awakening, and the atmosphere around echoed its impending presence. This. Luffy widened his eyes, his mind working quickly to anticipate the possible consequences of what was about to happen. Run, get away from the area now. Luffy's urgent cry reverberated through the crowd, initially stunned, trying to react, but the time had already run out. Nami's chest began to glow intensely, emitting a green light that captured the attention of everyone present. In a moment of panic, Luffy directed his orders to Yamato. Yamato, create an ice wall. Now. The urgency in Luffy's voice left no room for doubt, and Yamato promptly erected an ice wall, separating Arlong Park from the crowd. Luffy, acting instantly, employed his power on the newly created wall. More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, defense, apply 30 times, wait, what about Nami? Nojiko's alarmed cry echoed as she watched the wall forming in front of her and her sister. However, before Luffy could respond, something extraordinary happened, shaking everyone in the next moment. A violent tremor ran through Arlong Park, announcing the imminent manifestation of the power contained within Nami. Her kneeling figure became the epicenter of a growing storm, and everyone witnessed her frightening transformation. The green light radiating from her chest intensified, and, in a moment of catharsis, she raised her arms to the heavens and screamed. A black vortex began to form, initially small but growing at every moment so quickly that no one could react. The wind around Nami turned into a deafening roar, and the sky darkened with the shadow of the impending storm. The vortex expanded rapidly, engulfing Arlong Park in its spiral of destruction. Buildings were torn from their foundations, trees bent and stripped of leaves, while the ground trembled under the growing power of the storm. The gigantic hurricane, created by Nami's fury, devoured everything in its path, an unstoppable force destroying every trace of the park that had once been a symbol of Arlong's power. The crowd, now separated by the ice wall and protected by Luffy's defense, watched with horror and fascination as the cataclysm unfolded before their eyes. The cutting wind, the deafening noise, and the flickering lights created an apocalyptic sight, marking the emergence of a force that defied human understanding. Ah! Nami's agonizing scream reverberated like a symphony of agony, echoing in everyone's ears as an ominous omen. In an instant, Arlong Park and its wreckage were catapulted by the wind hurricane and, with a deafening crash, collided with the ice wall. The impact was felt by everyone on the other side, as the icy structure resisted, but not for long. Cracks began to form, challenging the enhanced resistance provided by Yamato and Luffy's combined abilities. Tension grew, and in a spectacular burst, the wall crumbled. The wind styled by the explosion advanced like a hurricane, brutally hitting everything in its path. Luffy and his companions, although trying to resist, were powerless against the overwhelming force. The crowd was thrown backward, flying through the air before falling hundreds of meters away. While everyone was thrown away by the wind explosion unleashed by Nami, Luffy, realizing the imminent danger, acted quickly. Using his mythical zone abilities, he concentrated flames in his hands and shot controlled explosions towards the flying debris. The strategically directed explosions aimed to disintegrate larger fragments that could pose a threat to the people launched by the wind. The crackling fire danced in the air, creating a shower of attacks on the large rocks for the safety of the villagers still in the air from the force of the explosion. Although some debris still reached the ground, Luffy's action minimized the damage and prevented greater tragedies. While some villagers fell unharmed to the ground, albeit stunned and slightly injured, they were fortunate to escape serious harm, while others lay unconscious on the ground. More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, weight. Apply 20 times. Luffy managed to stop by increasing his weight to avoid being blown away by the wind and looked at the impossible. He acquired this power just 1 day ago. Luffy exclaimed in disbelief. After the initial explosion, a colossal hurricane began to form, reaching into the skies and engulfing the entire Arlong base, causing the entire island to feel the wrath of the wind. Under the vortex that already covered the Arlong base area, small harpies emerged, punctuating the scene with green lights. 1, 2, dozens of them appeared, all seemingly preparing to attack. However, Luffy's attention was drawn back to the monstrous hurricane. In the heart of the storm, 2 giant yellow eyes revealed themselves, blinking intermittently with effects similar to green lightning. The crowd fell silent as an imposing shadow of a colossal figure, about 50 meters tall, began to emerge in the center of that tumultuous manifestation. 4 enormous wings stretched on its back, visible whenever the hurricane gleamed with green lights. Garuda was the only word that managed to escape Luffy's lips as he watched the majestic figure reveal itself, resembling a giant Valkyrie emerging from the chaos. Chapter 63, Kokoyasi Village 6. Kokoyasi Village, East Blue. What the hell is this? Exclaimed Yamato, his voice muffled by the deafening roar of the wind emanating from the colossal storm. The entire island was immersed in the monstrous wind current that originated at the center of the Arlong Park and continued to ascend into the sky for several kilometers. Despite Luffy's efforts to avoid fatalities, many people were thrown unconscious upon impact as Yamato's ice wall dissolved. The residents, mostly dressed in white, struggled to hold on to anything available, striving not to be thrown by the merciless winds battering them. What's happening? Where did this come from? Where's Nami? Nojiko shouted in desperation, rising from the ground. She frantically searched for her sister, fearing the worst, as Arlong Park was now covered by the colossal storm that had formed at the center of the explosion. The rest of the group shared the same fear as they tried to recover, not only observing the hurricane but also the strange creatures emerging at its feet. What's going on? Did Nami do this? Exclaimed Reiju, shielding her eyes from the furious wind of the storm. What is that? Is that Nami? Kuina shouted alarmed, clinging to a tree while pointing at the hurricane. She had the same vision as Luffy, witnessing the manifestation of the gigantic Garuda. She's lost control. Luffy murmured, fixing his gaze on the colossal shadow within the hurricane. What do you mean she's lost control? There's no way she could just lose control. Kuina argued, demonstrating familiarity with the concepts and workings of devil fruits. Fruits in the zone category have a will of their own, Kuina. Don't underestimate them, especially the most powerful ones in the mythical category. Warned Luffy, not taking his eyes off the shadow flickering with green lights 400 meters away. And what are those things emerging in the hurricane? Reiju asked aloud, watching the small army of harpies emerging in a green light. It seems to be a unique ability of Garuda. She can create these creatures. We better protect the villagers from these things as they might well attack anything in their path. Cautioned Luffy, narrowing his eyes. What are we going to do about Nami? Yamato shouted aloud. We have to stop her, don't we? Zoro reasoned aloud. Are we going to fight that? Usopp yelled, visibly apprehensive. Is that Nami? That's a monster, how are we going to face that? Johnny exclaimed, expressing his fear. Yes, brother Johnny is right. We can't fight that. Yosaku argued, raising his voice to be heard over the wind. Guys. Luffy announced with amplified voice. Listen, I'll deal with Nami. You take care of the villagers, her powers can summon these miniature harpies. You must deal with them and protect the villagers. Instructed Luffy, earning some stunned looks as everyone turned to the strange creatures emerging. Of all the econs, Garuda is the weakest, however, she is the most versatile in my opinion, even more so than Odin. In addition to the powers Nami has already demonstrated, Garuda can summon these soldiers, forming even a mini-army of them. Nami is still far from fully controlling these abilities, but, as it happened once in the game where Garuda went out of control, creating a few dozen of these creatures on her own, the same is happening now with Nami. We have to stop them without hurting any villagers. Reflected Luffy. These creatures could attack anything, as he had mentioned before, and Nami could regret it for the rest of her life if something happened to someone in the village due to her uncontrolled power. At that moment, Luffy thought of another person who, unfortunately, had faced a similar fate. I won't let you have the same fate as Yuta. Luffy muttered to himself without raising his voice, as the wind was too loud, and no one else heard. Yamato. Luffy called her immediately with his simplified voice again, and Yamato looked at him the next moment. Look, stay here to protect the people. I'll deal with Nami and intend to transform as well, but there's a good chance of losing control just like Nami. I'm sure I'm not ready for that now. However, if that happens, only you can handle us, understood? But Luffy, that's dangerous, isn't it? Yamato shouted with some concern. Yeah, I won't deny it. But it's necessary. I plan to stay in the final phase until I deal with Nami. You need to intervene if something goes wrong. I'm counting on you, Vice Captain. Luffy spoke and started walking forward against the wind. Increasing his weight, he managed to stand firm against the hurricane as he approached the summoned creatures and Garuda above them. Luffy knew he was acting recklessly, that he would have a better chance of facing Nami with Yamato, but he wanted to test his powers at full strength, and this was a good opportunity. I came to this world and want to enjoy the emotions of an intense battle. Here, in the sea, I don't have many opportunities. Besides Mihawk, I practically deal with everyone easily. Luffy reflected as he walked, hoping to have a good fight with Nami. Luffy felt like he was being watched and looked up at the hurricane. Even without observation haki, it was possible to feel the pressure of being observed by some kind of Megazord. Garuda's eyes seemed to see them as a challenge, shining in a yellow hue within the gray and green wind of the hurricane. Luffy moved 200 meters away from the group and was now in front of the hurricane. Surrounded by at least 30 of the summoned creatures, he prepared for the confrontation. But Luffy's eyes glowed intensely in scarlet, focused solely on Garuda and the hurricane. The hurricane instantly dissipated, bringing relief to everyone present. However, what emerged in its place left expressions of disbelief on all faces. Where the Arlong Park was before, there was now a barren wasteland, a desolate landscape that contrasted dramatically with the previous structure. As the wind-blown dust settled, a massive shadow emerged on the horizon. It was the imposing Garuda, with its 4 wings outstretched and a colossal height of 50 meters. The majestic details of the creature were visible as the daylight highlighted its features, leaving everyone stunned in the face of this astonishing manifestation. Luffy didn't need to turn around to sense the shock that this sight had caused everyone. It was the first time they had witnessed an econ completely transformed in this world. Where did this monster come from? By the gods. Is that Nami? She turned into this thing? Someone turn her back. The villagers screamed from afar, feeling relief from the absence of the wind pressure, but the shock still lingered upon them in the face of the colossus rising before their eyes. Luffy, on the other hand, kept his eyes fixed on Garuda, completely focused on the imposing creature. However, in the midst of the tense silence, something unexpected happened. Awaken! A terrifying and ancient voice, laden with a commanding presence and unfathomable antiquity, suddenly echoed from within him. The sound reverberated like an ancient whisper, enveloping Luffy in a mysterious aura. Surprised, Luffy instinctively turned his gaze to his own chest, trying to comprehend the origin of this voice that seemed to emerge from time immemorial. Luffy was surprised, contemplating this strange internal manifestation. The voice continued, urging him to awaken a dormant power. You econ sure know how to be terrifying, don't you? Luffy murmured, trying to understand what was happening. The voice echoed in his mind, an ancestral presence that seemed to desire the release of something powerful within him. Awaken that power. The voice insisted, echoing like a sinister whisper. Okay, as long as you don't go out of control. Luffy responded, speaking directly to this inner entity. Awaken. Ifrit. The voice persisted, becoming more intense. Well, you don't even listen to me, do you? But still, let's see what you're capable of, Ifrit. Luffy declared, accepting the unknown challenge unfolding within himself. Every word of the ancestral voice seemed to vibrate at the core of his existence, triggering an imminent transformation. Luffy's eyes intensified their red hue, and fiery flames began to dance around him, growing furiously in front of the Harpies and Garuda. The flames formed a violent whirlwind around him, resembling another firestorm that was growing with every moment Luffy focused on the power within him. Before anyone could react, the flames erupted from Luffy in a truly spectacular display. A fiery pillar rose from the realms of Ifrit, shooting towards the firmament and dominating a vast expanse of the horizon. The sight transcended reality, as if the world itself succumbed to darkness, leaving the colossal pillar of purple fire as the sole source of illumination. The flames grew incessantly, surpassing 50 meters in width, engulfing many harpies nearby and reaching heights exceeding 400 meters. Everyone present felt the intense heat emanating from the monumental column of fire, witnessing a scene that defied human comprehension. When the fiery display finally subsided and ceased, the day seemed to glow under the sun. However, the land around was now devastated and scorched, with purple flames burning everywhere, unaffected by the gentle wind still emanating from Garuda, even without the hurricane that accompanied it before. Crack! Suddenly, a thunderous roar reverberated as a colossal foot crushed the ground, cracking the earth as it revealed the immense presence of Ifrit. The impact was so powerful that fissures extended through the ground, providing a spectacular view of its magnitude. The giant foot, surrounded by amethyst flames, belonged to the colossal figure of Luffy transformed. Ifrit stood imposing, its majestic form standing out against the cracked and burnt scenery around it due to its flaming pillar. The scene unfolded, gradually revealing the impressive features of Ifrit in its complete transformation. The imposing figure resembled a drake, a lizard-like being with skin reminiscent of burnt rock, covered by amethyst armor that gave it a robust appearance. Vibrant flames danced on various parts of its body, creating a fiery aura that enveloped the colossal creature standing at 50 meters tall. A horn curved backward adorned its head, adding a touch of majesty to its imposing form. In front of Garuda, Ifrit roared vigorously, standing out as a commanding presence in the scene, while everyone watched, amazed and awestruck by the magnitude of these colossal creatures. Leaning forward, Luffy, in the colossal form of Ifrit, unleashed a resounding roar that echoed throughout the island. Each sound wave of the roar seemed to vibrate in the air, announcing the imposing presence of Ifrit before its challenger, the colossal harpy Garuda. The powerful sound echoed through the landscapes, making everyone around feel the intensity of the moment as the atmosphere was saturated with the magnitude of this imminent confrontation between two colossal entities. If anyone has the gift of Clive transforming into Ifrit for the first time, put it here. Ruar Garuda responded with a peculiar cry, a strange cacophony of sounds resembling multiple birds screaming simultaneously. She was clearly irritated by the challenge from this other icon. Luffy stared at the gigantic harpy, while on his body, amethyst flames surged violently, further highlighting his imposing form. What am I seeing? Zoro choked. So big. Shirahoshi exclaimed. Sharky. Luffy could always turn into this. Reiju wondered, amazed. It's colossal. Yozaku shouted. And to think we had two monsters in the crew. Zoro murmured. This is insane. Usopp exclaimed, his eyes wide open at the colossal sight. So, my Luffy could do this all along? Yamato asked, surprised. Now, before everyone, there were two 50-meter giants, facing each other, ready for an epic confrontation. The crew, as well as the island inhabitants, watched in dread, fearing that these creatures could destroy the entire place. Chapter 64, Kokoyasi Village 7. Ifrit glared at Garuda with fury, its immense form standing out in the scenery as amethyst flames danced around it, giving it a threatening aura. I am being influenced by my own Nikon. Luffy's thoughts echoed in his mind, realizing that the beast within him craved a brutal battle. Feeling the storm of emotions roaring like a hurricane, he murmured internally, deciding to fight against his opponent like a true wild beast. More fruit model, amplify human devil fruit, mind, apply 3 times. Faced with the imminent loss of control to the inner beast, Luffy acted swiftly, invoking the power of his devil fruit to strengthen his mind and stay conscious for a while longer while battling for control. Luffy's mind briefly shone with a golden light as he struggled to subdue the instinctive fury of the Econ. These Econs are more dangerous than I imagined. I need to end this before my mind succumbs to Ifrit's will. It's a shame I can't apply the more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit to other aspects, as I am using its application in the mind. I'll have to fight using Ifrit's power alone. But I have to admit, it's incredible to be a colossal monster of 50 meters. The perspective is completely different when flying at this height. Looking down and seeing my crew like ants below is fascinating. This transformation isn't bad, despite making me an easy target. My body is much more resistant, and my strength is several times greater now, compared to the Phase 2 transformation. Luffy reflected, finding a hint of fascination amid the chaos of battle. Transforming into a giant colossus of 50 meters, Luffy felt an overwhelming sense of power and grandeur. The elevated perspective provided him with a panoramic view of the battlefield, where his comrades and enemies resembled small dots compared to his immense stature. The feeling of dominance and control over the environment was palpable, while the world below seemed to shrink in the face of his colossal presence. Every step Luffy took reverberated like a tremor, echoing his unparalleled strength. His now robust and resistant body contrasted with the apparent fragility of those below him. The higher breeze, distant sounds, and even the smell of the environment took on a new dimension when experienced from such an extraordinary height. Despite becoming an obvious target, Luffy couldn't help but marvel at the unique perspective that the transformation offered. The aerial view and the feeling of being in control of a colossal force added an additional layer of complexity and fascination to the experience of being a true giant in battle. Garuda growled, drawing Luffy's attention once again. Roar! Garuda's thunderous roar echoed, challenging Luffy in his imposing Ifrit form. While amethyst fire enveloped Ifrit, Luffy thought, "Sorry, Nami, but I'll have to smack you until you're back to normal." His scarlet eyes were focused on the gigantic harpy before him. Roar. Ifrit responded to Garuda's challenge, releasing a powerful roar as a declaration of its own fury. Amidst the tension, Garuda, consumed by uncontrollable rage, was the first to act. Emerging from the wreckage of the former Arlong Park, now reduced to ruins, she flapped her wings forcefully, gaining speed to charge at Ifrit. The giant harpy closed in quickly, reaching a distance of 200 meters, and extended her sharp claws toward the purple fire drake. In response, Ifrit adjusted its feet, standing firm to face the imminent impact and confrontation. Its colossal feet crushed some harpies that were dangerously approaching its crew and the villagers. The ground trembled under the impact, but Ifrit remained vigilant to the threat around it. Meanwhile, Garuda, moving with impressive speed, was already before Ifrit, launching her sharp claws in a fierce assault. Luffy, still lucid, agile, and aware of the imminent danger, coordinated his movements. With precise movements, Ifrit skillfully dodged Garuda's attack, flexing its colossal body to the side. In response, Luffy launched himself onto the giant harpy. Grabbing her arms after dodging, Ifrit held Garuda firmly using both hands. Without wasting time, before Garuda could react, Luffy concentrated his strength. Spinning Garuda's massive body by the same arm, he executed an almost complete 360-degree turn. The force of the movement threw Garuda with momentum in the opposite direction, hurling her beyond the forest near the former Arlong Park. The strong wind generated by the impactful motion swept the area, leaving everyone around astonished at the display of Ifrit's immense strength. Boom! The impact of Garuda's colossal body colliding with the ground made the entire area shake, echoing the brute force that Luffy had applied in a long-awaited strike. People, who initially seemed like ants before the titanic movements of these two beings, couldn't help but be amazed at the incredible evolution of the battle. Amidst the chaos, the population ran, fearful that the fight between the two giants could result in the destruction of the island. Furthermore, hostile creatures in the form of harpies created by Nami's power tried to approach, but Nami's pirate crew skillfully prevented these threats from advancing towards the civilians, acting as a protective shield in the midst of the turmoil. "Get the unconscious ones and get out of here!" Raju exclaimed, urging the villagers to act quickly. Bing bang! "What are these things?" Usopp shouted as he fired, eliminating one of the creatures. Luffy said these things are created by Nami's power. "Shirahoshi, don't get into this fight, stay behind and take care of the villagers." Kuina pleaded with concern. Yes. Shirahoshi agreed, running in the safe direction along with her shark. "Chaochu, Nojiko, you must go with them too." Yamato insisted. Woof woof. Chaochu refused. "I'm not going anywhere. My sister is out of control, and I don't intend to leave," Nojiko asserted, picking up a spear that had fallen from the fisherman during the hurricane, ready to assist the crew against the creatures. Chaos had already spread across the entire island at this point. Even with the former captives, they were stunned by the sight of colossal beings emerging even from quite a distance away from that place, after that enormous hurricane, and trembled as those things began to fight each other kilometers away. "What are those things that appeared after that sudden hurricane?" one of them shouted. "We should have stayed at base 16. I don't want to be crushed if those things come here. Let's get back to the marine ship and escape this island." They quickly ran to the marine ship, eager to return to the sea. Meanwhile, amidst the battle of those colossi, boom! The thunder of Garuda being thrown into the forest, uprooting thousands of trees, while her body served as the very brake. Without wasting time, Luffy began to advance in her direction, determined to end the fight as quickly as possible. Boom! 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 Every step Luffy took was like a sonic explosion, cracking the ground and crushing trees and rocks beneath his feet. Garuda, still enraged, got up and faced Ifrit with her fierce yellow eyes. Roar! Roar! Once again, the two beasts roared at each other, echoing like thunder before launching into another round. Garuda spread her wings, gaining momentum as she ascended dozens of meters into the air. Powerful winds began to circulate around her claws, creating a stormy aura around her. Meanwhile, Ifrit, the colossus of purple flames, formed fiery fists in preparation for the imminent clash. The tension in the air was almost palpable, enveloping the two titans preparing for the next exchange of blows. Garuda flew towards Ifrit, who responded with fiery punches. Boom! The resulting explosion from the collision of different elemental fists tore through the forest. The impact was not limited to the collision site but reverberated throughout the island. The elements expanded violently, completely decimating that part of the forest for hundreds of meters. The roar echoed, making it clear that the battle between these two giants was far from over. Ah! The island is shaking. The impact is coming, be careful. This is the end of the world. Charlie. This is so scary. The villagers screamed, feeling the power of the clash between the two colossi, while carrying the hurricane-injured people along with Shirahoshi. In the midst of the furious clash of elements, the wind managed to prevail over Ifrit's fire this time. Luffy, losing momentum, was thrown to the opposite side, colliding with a mountain in the heart of the island. Krasikaka Mountain, now being destroyed by the colossal body, was visible to everyone on the island. Although Ifrit was smaller than the mountain, the force of the impact significantly altered the landscape, causing a profound shock to everyone present to the core of their souls. The unexpected destruction turned the scenery into a haunting spectacle. The tremors resulting from the impact between Garuda and Ifrit echoed throughout the island, like seismic pulses shaking the ground. Trees were toppled in a chaotic dance, rocks detached from the mountains, and the ground cracked under the colossal pressure. The atmosphere was imbued with collective fear as villagers ran in desperation, trying to protect themselves from the imminent chaos. The visible destruction extended beyond the point of impact. Shockwaves radiated, affecting distant areas of the island. Nearby structures were reduced to rubble, and dust clouds obscured the air. The roar of colliding elements resonated like a continuous thunder, echoing through mountains and valleys. The idyllic scenery of the island was being transformed before the astonished eyes of the local inhabitants. The lush nature was replaced by a chaotic scene of destruction, and the island faced a titanic test of strength that threatened to rewrite its geography. What kind of fight is this? I want to go home. Usopp shouted in fear as he continued to shoot at the harpies threatening them, yearning to escape the destruction caused by Luffy's and Nami's battle. They felt the impact of the forests being destroyed and sensed the entire island trembling. Luffy. Yamato murmured while watching Luffy being thrown into a mountain like a colossal puppet. Unfortunately, she couldn't reach Phase 3 of her mythical zone yet, as her development had always been restricted by the sea stone handcuffs her father put on her. But she was moved by this kind of fight. It seemed like the island would be destroyed if they let Luffy and Nami fight like madmen for the next hour. We want to leave. The bounty hunters, in turn, joined the chorus of requests to abandon the island, fearing the imminent collapse. The scene of destruction was so overwhelming that the idea of staying in that location became increasingly unsustainable. The epic battle between the two colossi was transforming the island from a peaceful paradise into a cataclysmic battlefield. A harpy charged at the group, but before it could attack, Zoro delivered a precise cut, eliminating the imminent threat. Stop crying and pay attention to the fight here, you'll end up dying like this. Zoro growled, urging the bounty hunters to focus on the battle against the harpies. Yes. Thank you, Brother Zoro. They thanked in unison, realizing the importance of staying alert in the face of the creatures surrounding them. Boom. 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 Rachel, in turn, kicked several harpies, demonstrating skill in repelling these creatures. After defeating the last one, she paused to catch her breath. These things don't stop appearing. She expressed her concern upon noticing that another group of these monsters was approaching, indicating that the battle was far from over. Yes, but we have to take care of them before they reach the village. The rest of the island can barely handle these harpies. Kuina, despite the difficulty in her fight, tried to defend herself with her sword. Tenses Zangetsu pressed against the claws of one of the creatures in a strength clash, being an 11-year-old girl. Ah! Nojiko appeared beside Kuina, wielding a spear she had picked up earlier, and struck a precise blow against a harpy. Thank you. Kuina expressed gratitude upon seeing her fight end. It was nothing. Is Nami creating these things? Nojiko was still trying to process the entire situation. She's out of control. Luffy said the fruit itself is in command. Yamato explained. Woof. Chaozu jumped towards a harpy but was thrown aside after being hit by one of the creature's claws. Chaozu. Usopp shouted and aimed at the Valkyrie, firing 3 shots. Bang bang bang. After 3 shots, the harpy succumbed to the attack and dissipated in the air with a glow. Damn it, Luffy, stop Nami quickly. Usopp complained. He's still lying on that collapsed mountain. Yamato said. Nami will be fine, trust the captain, Luffy will manage. Nojiko tried to calm everyone's concern with confidence in the crew's captain. Yes. We have faith that Luffy will stop Nami without harming her. Luffy. Roar. Before they could continue placing their faith in Luffy, a thunderous sound echoed through the island once again, and an imposing Ifrit emerged from the wreckage of the mountain, roaring louder than ever, as if thirsty for another round of battle. Luffy. Go, Luffy, stop Nami. Luffy, we trust you. End this and bring Nami back. Just don't destroy the island, please. His crew witnessed Ifrit emerging gloriously from the wreckage that was once a mountain, the result of Luffy's impact. Ifrit faced Garuda, ready for another battle. Meanwhile, Luffy surveyed the scene and the distance he had flown. I have to end this before the landscape of this island changes drastically or the island itself is destroyed, he thought, facing his formidable opponent once again. Garuda assumed an attacking stance once more, and Ifrit responded in kind, even from a distance. Thus, Garuda and Ifrit prepared for a third clash. Chapter 65, Kokoyasi Village 8. As the two econs faced each other from a distance, frightened birds crossed the sky, avoiding the monstrosities that resembled small mosquitoes in comparison. It seems I won't be able to save energy. I tried to do that and ended up being carried away by Nami. Luffy lamented the last clash, where he hesitated to use all his strength, trying to maintain clarity. Regret lingered in his thoughts. Without further delay, Luffy flexed his knees, cracking the ground even more with his powerful feet. He launched into the attack, his body surrounded by purple flames, running with surprising speed. For observers, it was like witnessing a meteor sliding across the land, leaving behind a trail of fire as he headed towards Garuda, which was 2 kilometers away. In just a few seconds, he reached the winged monstrosity, creating a path of flames in his wake. Flames witnessing Luffy's onslaught, Garuda tried to fly, but before she could react, the Straw Hat Captain was already in front of her, ready to deliver a punch enveloped in flames. Boom! Garuda adopted a defensive posture, crossing her arms, but the impact of the fiery punch shook her, propelling her backward. At the peak of imbalance, Luffy held her with a single hand, bringing her back into his proximity. In a fluid motion, he swung his arm over Ifrit's shoulder, lifting the giant mythical zone into the air and then letting her fall backward with a thunderous impact. Crack! The echo of the crash reverberated as the ground cracked under the colossal fall. Luffy didn't stop there. Quickly, he swung his arm back and then thrust it forward, delivering a fiery punch from the ground toward Garuda. Flames boom. Crack. The impressive sound of flames, explosion, and the ground cracking echoed once again, causing the entire island to tremble slightly. Give up, Garuda. You can't keep going like this. Luffy murmured to himself, holding on to the hope that Nami would return to her normal state. Luffy was surprised to feel the concentration of wind growing beneath him. Before he could react, a hurricane engulfed him, throwing him away, challenging even the resilience of his colossal body. Garuda's hurricane wind, fueled by Nami's uncontrollable power, had a deafening roar. The blast of air swept everything in its path as Garuda was being pressed down by Ifrit above her. Even the nearby landscape did not escape unscathed, toppling trees, rocks, and anything in the path of the unbridled fury. The impact shook the island once again. Darn, that hurt. Luffy muttered as he flew through the air. After being hit by Garuda's hurricane, Luffy, transformed into Ifrit, was thrown into the sky in a diagonal line, crossing the air like a giant, uncontrolled puppet. The impact was strong, but Luffy skillfully adjusted his position in the air to land on his feet while his amethyst flames flickered furiously around him. Ifrit's paws plunged into the ground with a deafening crash. The colossal body of Ifrit dove towards the earth, causing a violent shockwave. The ground trembled under the massive impact, cracking and fragmenting with the force of Ifrit's grounding. The trees around bent before the arrival of the colossal figure, some being uprooted. Dust and debris rose in a dense cloud, momentarily obscuring the view. The crater formed by the impact expanded rapidly with its weight alone, revealing the magnitude of its force. Birds already frightened by the fight, which had stirred the entire island, took flight towards the sea, dispersing in the face of the intensity of the battle caused on the island. The earth itself seemed to groan under the weight of Luffy and Garuda's transformation since they began the confrontation. Ifrit's gaze turned to its opponent in the distance, but beyond rising again, Luffy saw her tilt her wings. His eyes followed with intensity every beat of Garuda's wings, which, with powerful gusts, majestically rose from the ground. With each upward movement, the harpy gained altitude until reaching a height of 500 meters. With her flying, things are going to get more difficult. Luffy thought. The imposing silhouette of Garuda stood out against the sky, wings beating in a majestic rhythm as she hovered in the air. The mocking expression in the harpy's eyes echoed challenge, indicating that the battle was far from over. While Luffy fixed his defiant gaze on Garuda, who soared in the skies. I wanted to avoid this, not to spend even more energy, as I won't be able to endure much longer conscious in the Ifrit transformation. But since you leave me no choice, let's see this through to the final phase. Luffy pondered. However, faced with Garuda's persistence, he concluded that he had no choice but to advance to the last phase. With determination, he concentrated his power on his back. A dazzling explosion of light radiated from Luffy, outlining the wings taking shape. The intense brightness eclipsed even the flames that surrounded Ifrit. In this splendor, 2 black wings, as deep as the night, emerged. They radiated intense heat, while amethyst flames danced vibrantly along their lengths, giving an even more imposing aura to Luffy's transformation. The surrounding environment trembled with the majestic manifestation of the power that now flowed through him. Without wasting time, Luffy flexed his knees and propelled himself to the next stage of the transformation. The environment around him seemed to vibrate with the energy emanating from Ifrit's colossal figure. With a powerful thrust, Luffy jumped from the wreckage of the forest, the ground exploding under his feet once again as Ifrit took off into the sky, and the forest shrank with the wind he produced with it. The roar of the jump reverberated through the landscape, echoing the power contained in that colossal charge. Ifrit enveloped its body in flames as it ascended into the air, beating its wings to meet Garuda in the skies. Roar! A resounding roar echoed through the air as Garuda, realizing the charge, leaned in for the encounter, her hands surrounded by a vortex of dark and green wind once again. This time, it was to increase the intensity of my flames to face her. Luffy reasoned, intensifying the temperature far beyond the last confrontation, when he was just testing the waters and conserving energy. Boom! The explosion of the blows manifested in the air above the island. However, all witnesses still felt the tension of the two colors in conflict, each representing the power of Ifrit and Garuda. Ifrit got the upper hand against Garuda this time, pushing her back 3 kilometers in the air due to the impact towards the sea. She managed to recover in the air, thanks to her wings, but the force of the blow made it clear that the balance of the battle was shifting. Luffy didn't hesitate and was already on her at that moment, finding himself in the middle of the vast ocean. Garuda, in turn, didn't want to be taken by surprise again and responded to Luffy with the same intensity. People on the island could see Garuda and Ifrit exchanging blows as they flew through the air a few kilometers away. Boom. 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 Several kilometers above the sea, Garuda and Ifrit delivered their colossal blows, creating a spectacle of lights and explosions in the firmament. The sunlight, filtered through the clouds, shone through the sparks and flames dancing in the wake of the aerial clashes. Luffy, in his Ifrit form, dove and ascended with agility, leaving a trail of purple flames in his path. His flaming punches relentlessly sought the agile Garuda as she skillfully slid between the attacks, slicing through the air with her sharp claws. Boom. Crack. Roar. The explosions illuminated the sky, highlighting the imposing silhouettes of these titanic creatures. The sea below seemed small and distant, witnessing the grandeur and fury of this celestial battle. Each blow exchanged between Garuda and Ifrit reverberated through space, like a symphony of destruction echoing across the entire island and beyond. The roar of the explosions echoed like thunder, and the seismic impacts were felt even at a considerable distance. It was a spectacle that transcended human understanding, a monumental sight they never imagined witnessing. 2 titanic colossi, Garuda and Ifrit, entwined in a dance of destruction, fiercely punching each other while floating several kilometers high. The magnitude of this divine battle was surreal, a scene that challenged the boundaries of credulity. For the spectators on the island, it was as if they were watching a fight between gods in the very sky. This awe-inspiring image was destined to be etched into their memories, leaving an indelible mark that would endure for the rest of their lives. Even the Straw Hats were mesmerized, witnessing this epic battle between titans. Yamato, Luffy said for you to intervene if something happens to him, but let's be honest, can you get involved in the middle of that fight? Reiju asked, lighting a cigarette now that the battle seemed to have tilted in their favor. After eliminating the last harpies, which had apparently ceased, probably because Garuda needed energy for the battle and didn't create them anymore, Yamato pondered, it's really hard to say. Even with Hack, I would still be facing 2 monsters with powerful elements. Luffy-sama will make it. Shirahoshi confidently affirmed, now that she had returned to the crew after the battle. Look, Luffy is gaining the upper hand, observed Zoro. From a distance, they could see Luffy landing a right hook on Garuda. What is he doing? He's going to do something to her. In the instant following that powerful punch, everyone witnessed Luffy, with Garuda stunned in the skies, wrapping her from behind, firmly holding her arms and pinning her wings. In a fluid motion, his body started spinning towards the island, the purple flames intensifying around him. Like a flaming meteor, Luffy projected himself directly towards the island, carrying with him the other imposing winged creature. An uncontrollable chain of fire formed, leaving everyone on the island gaping at the fiery spectacle inexorably approaching. He can't be coming here, can he? Shirahoshi, seeing Luffy's trajectory, raised the question. Yes. He is coming directly here. Reiju let her cigarette fall from her mouth, panicking. Run. Run. Johnny shouted in desperation. Run. Yamato also warned, watching that enormous meteor formed by 2 50-meter creatures flying towards them. Ah. Sharky. Uh-oh. I don't want to die like this. Run. We're going to be crushed. Shut up and just run. While the crew ran in fear, Luffy reached the ground just a bit before where the crew was. Boom. Ifrit, accompanied by Garuda, crashed with a roar into the water on the beach, generating a deafening shockwave that rippled through the area. Crack! The earth was abruptly lifted as the colossal entity descended, dragging Garuda across the island. The impact began on the beach and spread across the entire length of the island until reaching its center. During this terrible path of destruction, Ifrit didn't hesitate to drag Garuda, ruthlessly rubbing her on the ground. The resounding roar and the resulting tremors echoed throughout the island, making people feel the ground shaking beneath their feet. Panic set in, and the island's inhabitants watched in horror, unable to believe what their eyes were witnessing. The only sound permeating the island was the echo of the impact, with debris flying in all directions, creating a trail of destruction. The line of smoke rising at the end of this path of chaos outlined the imposing figure of Ifrit, which rose majestically after the confrontation that had left its indelible mark on the island's landscape. Roar! The vibrant roar echoed as a proclamation of victory, reverberating through the island that now displayed visible scars from the colossal battle. I won, but I'm almost turning into a beastly mind. Luckily, I triumphed before my consciousness completely succumbed to Ifrit, murmured Luffy, his eyes fixed on the ground just 50 meters away. There, he witnessed Garuda unconscious, whose form suddenly began to glow, undoing her transformation. Her body shrank to take the form of a small unconscious girl, now lying in the middle of the crater. Thank goodness it's over, finally. Luffy thought, relieved as he reverted his transformation. Everyone could witness Ifrit shining intensely before disappearing the next moment. With a small explosion, Luffy touched the ground in the center of the clearing. Rising from the dust, he approached Nami lying on the ground and bruised. You sure give me some trouble, silly girl. Luffy commented with a bit of difficulty breathing, reaching his mental limit as well. A thunderous noise echoed from the other side, and Luffy didn't need to look in that direction to know it was the sea flooding the crater line with force. I better get Nami out of here, he muttered, but he was out of strength. The last thing he remembers is footsteps approaching before fainting, recognizing it to be Yamato by the sound of their wooden sandals, a traditional attire in Wano. Luffy just smiled and allowed his mind to rest after so much exhaustion in this intense battle. Chapter 66, Kokoyashi Village 9. What exhaustion? Luffy murmured, finally opening his eyes after the last memories and looked around, trying to locate himself. When Luffy woke up, he realized he was in a house and saw the window overlooking the sea. Recognizing this view, he noticed he was at Nami's house, and it was late afternoon. That means I stayed just a few hours, or am I a day, but I doubt it's the latter. Luffy thought and noticed someone in the bed next to him. He realized it was Nami herself, who was beside him in bed. Luffy-sama. Shirahoshi was heard, and Luffy looked at the window to be faced with a huge eye outside, looking at him curiously. Did she return to normal? Well, I got knocked out by my own mind. Luffy couldn't help but speak softly. Sharky. A voice from behind the huge mermaid grumbled. Hello, princess. You too, Megalo. Luffy smiled. Are you okay, Luffy-sama? I returned to being large. I wanted to come into the house too, she said with a bit of regret. Wait a moment, I'm coming out. Luffy held her. You She nodded with a smile. Luffy sighed and yawned, getting up from the bed to check on someone and see how the others are, to find out how they dealt with the situation and its consequences. Luffy left the room and went to the stairs at the end of the corridor. Descending to the lower floor of the house, he encountered female members of his crew with Nojiko in the kitchen destroyed by Nami. Luffy. Yamato, unsurprisingly, was the first to notice and go to him. Are you okay? We were really worried about you and Nami. She hugged him before he could react. Luffy, being suffocated by her huge breasts, couldn't make any comprehensible sound. Yamato, don't suffocate him like that. Kuina complained from his side. Oh sorry, ha 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 ha. She laughed and released Luffy, smiling at him with a cheerful expression. Sigh, I'm okay, a bit sore, but I'll recover quickly. Can you tell me what happened right after I passed out? Luffy asked, wanting to catch up. Well, first off, our ship came out of your pocket to its real size as last time, with the poneglyphs, and as we heard you two talking up there, Shirahoshi and Megalo are giant again outside the house, waiting for you to shrink them again. Rage said simply. The ship wasn't crushed by seawater, was it? Luffy became worried about seawater filling that hole. No, it rose as soon as the water sank, but it's in the same place, while those strange stones are at the bottom of the water. Yamato said in front of Luffy. Understandable, and the fishmen? Luffy wanted to know. Well. Kuina hesitated. Arlong was found 4 kilometers away, at least his dead body, after being caught in Nami's explosion. Just like the majority of the fishmen, only a few remained since they were in the center of the hurricane, and some survived because they fell in better places than others, but not far from death. And some of those died in the middle of their fight against Nami, caught by the elements you were throwing at each other, or crushed by your bodies as you had a battle that consumed and destroyed 30% of the entire island, dramatically changing the landscape. Nojiko said what Yamato informed them after searching for the fishmen. All this information shocked them a lot, especially the result of a battle between Luffy and Nami, which lasted only 15 minutes. They knew that if the final confrontation had taken place on the island and not in the air, this fight could have caused much more destruction. Well, that's not surprising, but I'm finding Arlong an idiot now. The fool provoked Nami, making her lose control. It's like saying he played with fire after everything, and I bet he didn't expect to get burned by it. It was practically suicide. Luffy mocked. The fishman brought about his own death in a moment of insane state. I can't blame him for thinking that way. Reiju said simply. And Nami? Is she okay? Luffy asked. Nami is fine too. From what I saw, she's just exhausted. Nojiko said. That's good, since Shirahoshi and Megalo are outside the house. Where are Zoro, Usopp, Johnny, Yozaku, and Chaochu? He wanted to know. There were only women here. They are in the village, helping to prepare a feast for tonight. Kuina said. Oh? But that's great. Ha 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 ha. Luffy laughed joyfully with the news and continued talking. Anyway, Yamato. Come with me, let's get our ship and stones in the water, after shrinking the princess and her shark, of course. Luffy announced and quickly left the house with his partner. Shirahoshi. Luffy, seeing the princess on the cliff, called her quickly. Luffy-sama. You're already out. Come here, you too, Megalo. After Luffy shrank his size to 10%, he did the same with Megalo and headed to the location of the hole made by the colossal battle with Yamato. The trail of destruction was evident throughout the island, as if a giant hurricane had passed through. Uprooted trees lay fallen, broken rocks formed an irregular landscape, and the once intact ground was now marked by huge fissures. Debris of vegetation and soil were thrown into the air, creating an apocalyptic scene that stretched across the entire horizon. Wherever one looked, there were traces of the epic confrontation between Ifrit and Garuda. The once peaceful land now exhibited the raw signs of the battle between two titans. It was a shocking and impactful sight, as if nature itself had been challenged and reshaped by the whims of these colossal creatures. In a crater 200 meters wide and kilometers long coming from the sea entrance due to the impact, Luffy and Yamato followed its edge to the end. There was the Black Pearl, standing and floating in the water, disturbed only by some waves coming directly from the sea. Looking at the damage, Luffy couldn't believe that the information about destruction was true. This fight opened a channel almost halfway through the island. This place would never be the same, and Luffy could still see flames on rocks in various places, which didn't stop burning even after hours of the fight, even on some mountains and in the devastated forests where the duo fought. With this channel created by our fight, this island could become a great commercial kingdom. Luffy suddenly had this idea, imagining a large city like the Goa Kingdom, around the channel. It would be an invaluable port for resupply and trade since the island is between Logtown and the rest of the East Blue. The Goa Kingdom is quite wealthy but very distant from the other kingdoms and islands in this sea, so he knew that trade was not the main focus of that kingdom. In Luffy's opinion, this place is the best strategic point in the East Blue because it is in the middle of this sea. But I don't have money to mobilize for something so big. Even if it gave me some profit after years. I should think first about what to do. Luffy thought since his money was focused on improving his group first, but he didn't deny that this tempted him a lot, and he was already imagining how he could get some money for it. Forget that thought, first, I have to deal with the poneglyphs, which are in the water. Luffy said thoughtfully. Yamato, freeze the water, and let's break the ice to reach them. Luffy said, and Yamato quickly jumped into the water and froze that part of the channel. She wasn't as powerful in her element as Kyuzen, but she could do things like these. After freezing, Luffy jumped in place and began to punch with pure focus not to melt the ice with his fire. Yamato helped him with her weapon, and after reaching the historical texts, he quickly shrank and stored them again with the Black Pearl going directly back into his pocket. So they quickly returned to the village. It was already dark, and the only lights in the forests were amethyst flames that still burned in many parts of the island as the night began. When they reached the village, everyone seemed to be celebrating already. Despite a big fight in the end and a part of the island modified and destroyed, no citizen died, and as a result, despite this, they ended up getting rid of Arlong, so it was a great reason to celebrate their victory and new freedom. Luffy quickly went to the village in celebration. The village was filled with a bubbling atmosphere of celebration. Laughter echoed through the air as residents expressed gratitude and enthusiasm. Tables adorned with festive foods and drinks decorated the streets, and colorful lanterns swayed gently, emitting a soft light that contributed to the festive atmosphere. Local musicians played cheerful melodies, and houses were decorated with vibrant flags. It was a vibrant and lively environment, where joy and relief blended after the intense events that shook the island. Despite the damage caused to about 30% of the island, the festive atmosphere in the village was palpable. The residents celebrated with joy. Destruction, far from extinguishing the spirit of the community for finally getting rid of the persistent threat of Arlong. The feeling of freedom and relief was evident in the smiles and hugs shared among the islanders. As soon as Luffy and Yamato arrived, they were noticed and passed by everyone as they made their way for him and Yamato, with some words of thanks, and they went to where his crew was, many already drinking. Luffy! Usopp shouted happily as I appeared there. Captain! Brother Luffy! Brother Luffy! Luffy greeted the lively crowd, raising his voice to be heard above the festive buzz. He grabbed a bottle of beer, a relaxed expression on his face as he blended into the collective joy. His eyes, however, turned to a specific corner of the celebration. Hey, everyone! How's everyone doing? Exclaimed Luffy, addressing the crowd before turning his attention to a specific point. Hey! Nami! Luffy let out a contagious laugh as he entered the hustle and spotted the orange-haired girl next to her sister, surrounded by most of the crew. Luffy! Nami responded with a mix of shyness and melancholy. Luffy understood the reason behind this state of mind. Since she woke up, Nami had been horrified to hear about the events, especially when she learned about the devastating impact her loss of control could have had on the village after the fight against Arlong. This awareness had left her disturbed, to the point of avoiding being in the village for some time. She only showed up because her sister convinced her, and even Genzo went to see her, saying that everyone was still grateful for her getting rid of the Arlong pirates after all. Luffy went to her with a big smile, ignoring those guilty thoughts of hers, and tried to cheer her up quickly. He didn't want to see his companion like this. Nami, you were amazing. Slap. Luffy slapped her on the back, and Nami flinched, looking at him stunned, as the slap made many stop to see what it was so loud. Nami didn't respond to Luffy but looked at him, stunned by the blow on her back. You defeated them so easily, it was so cool. Slap. The palm of Luffy's hand met Nami's back, making her tremble with the impact. In the end, you killed Arlong with that huge hurricane. Slap. Another slap echoed through the air, and the crew's attentive eyes witnessed each moment. When you turned into Garuda, you were so powerful and giant. Slap. Another hit, and Nami's surprised expression remained. You gave me the biggest battle I've ever had in my life. It was quite fun, despite being dangerous. Slap. The sound of the slap accompanied Luffy's enthusiastic words, creating a unique cadence. I never imagined I could fight by destroying mountains and devastating forests with every move. Slap. Each impact was felt, and Nami continued to process the words and slaps. We were like two giant meshes. Slap. The rhythm of the slaps followed Luffy's narrative, involving everyone in the celebration. Everyone looked so small compared to us. Slap. The crowd watched, amid laughter and astonishment, the unique dynamics of this interaction. The coolest part was flying. Slap. The slaps continued to resonate, punctuating each shared memory by Luffy. We exchanged punches in the air like titans. Slap. Each hit was a chapter in the story of this epic battle. It was so cool. Slap. The sounds of the slaps echoed in the festive atmosphere, creating a unique celebration melody. As expected of my navigator. Slap. Luffy's words were followed by another slap, concluding the peculiar performance. Ha 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 ha. Slap. Luffy's contagious laughter mixed with the sounds, forming a symphony of celebration. Boom. Can you stop slapping people on the back? Nami shouted, punching Luffy in the chest, resulting in a comedic explosion that caught everyone's attention in that festive moment. Boom. Luffy exploded into a nearby tree, creating a commotion. Ha 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 ha. That's the Nami I know. Luffy got up from the debris with a big smile on his face, tapping his hat to remove the dust as he put it back on his head, but in doing so, he only messed up his hair even more, making the scene even more hilarious. He then returned to Nami, laughing at the situation. You. Nami growled, her desire to hit Luffy again increasing. Nami, you can't treat your husband like that. Nojiko warned beside her, assuming a serious posture. He's not my husband, not until he gives me 10 billion or gives me a kingdom. Nami shouted, expressing her demands with a touch of indignation, challenging her womanizing captain with a hint of mischief. A kingdom? I guess that's fair, although it's quite greedy. Great, I'll create a kingdom on this island, and you'll be my queen, a great title for the wife of the Emperor of the Sea. Luffy announced, his response eliciting incredulous looks and laughter from the entire crew. Chapter 67, Kokoyasi Village 10. Ah! Luffy chugged a bottle of beer with one hand and ate a piece of meat with the other. Luffy. Have this sake, it's delicious. Zoro called to him from the other side to drink from his barrel. Yeah, let me finish this drink first. Luffy said with a smile as he took another sip of his beverage. As he enjoyed it, he was interrupted by a new person approaching. Hey, brat. Let's talk about you being Nami's husband. Genzo appeared in front of Luffy with a very dissatisfied expression, wanting to revisit the conversation they had at Nami's house before she knocked him out. And what would that be? Luffy asked calmly. Isn't it obvious that you have to take care of her? That you? Ah. He couldn't finish before taking a punch from Nami and fainting once again. What do you think you're saying, OLD man? She growled at the man, but he didn't respond after being knocked out once again. Ha 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 ha. Nami, you're really fierce. Your husband won't appreciate it like this. Nami is just in her youth, she's energetic, but when she becomes a mother, she'll change. Nami and Luffy heard all the village women giving her advice at this moment, not caring much about Genzo's condition. While Luffy tried to control his laughter at his own situation, Nami, in turn, seemed ready to unleash Garuda again. Despite returning to her normal self without all the previous depression surrounding her, she still retained her explosive and violent nature. You. She gritted her teeth, emitting an aura of intensity. I already said, I'll only marry this guy if he... She hesitated, interrupting the sentence halfway as she remembered the words Luffy had told her earlier. Why do you have to be so difficult, Luffy? She snarled at him, expressing her frustration. Because I'm your captain, isn't it obvious? Ha 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 ha. Luffy smiled and laughed, while Nami just stared at him, lost in perplexity in front of her peculiar captain. Luffy-sama is so romantic. Shirahoshi said dreamily. He definitely is not romantic. Nami, Kuina, and Yamato shouted at Shirahoshi simultaneously. Hey! Nojiko laughed at this. Anyway, Reiju, did you prepare more meat? I'm hungry. Luffy laughed and approached the pink-haired and curly-eyebrowed cook, expressing his typical concern for food. Here, you damn captain. She grumbled but handed him food while cooking in front of a large fire. Zoro, give me that steak. He turned his attention to the group of crewmen. Here. The night continued with everyone interacting with each other. Luffy didn't miss the opportunity to tease Nami, especially with his sister nearby, exchanging some blatant flirtations. In the middle of the party, something quite unexpected happened. Luffy, I think there's someone who wants to see you. Usopp commented beside him. Luffy turned his body and saw a man standing some distance away. It was Hugo, the one Luffy had invited shortly before entering this island, the last of the former captives left here, as everyone had fled when Luffy faced Garuda. Hugo. If you're here, does that mean you're joining the crew? Luffy quickly broke into a wide smile. Hugo was a character who had piqued Luffy's interest to become part of the crew. Although he didn't seem strong at that moment, Luffy believed that he would surely grow, maintaining the determination he showed in the face of Shirahoshi's conqueror's haki during the confrontation with Momo on the high seas. Yes, but can you show me that you won't bow your head to the world as you claim? He asked seriously. I can't prove that now, you'll have to see with your own eyes. I trust in my determination, so it's something that will reveal itself in the future. Luffy responded calmly. Hugo crossed his arms, maintaining a skeptical look despite the festive atmosphere around him. Captain Luffy, you may have defeated Arlong and that monster, but that doesn't prove you can challenge the world and stand firm. No one has survived the pressures of the world nobles out there. Don't you think you're being naive? Hugo questioned, maintaining his defiant posture. Luffy, with a confident smile, replied. Hugo, I understand your doubts. But you see, my crew and I face challenges that most people would consider impossible. It's not just about defeating enemies, it's about challenging expectations and never giving up. The true test is in the path we choose to follow. Zoro, who was nearby, intervened with his typical bluntness. Hugo, if you doubt the captain, then why did you come here? Wouldn't it be easier to stay out of the way? Hugo reflected for a moment, looking at Luffy and then at the crew surrounding him. You may have won here, but the world is vast and full of challenges. I'll join your crew, but I'll keep my eyes wide open. I want to see if you can really maintain that determination when the world presses and challenges those you claim not to fear. I want to become stronger, I want my revenge, challenge those people, and make them pay for everything they've done. I don't think I'll find anyone crazier than you, Monkey D. Luffy, in this or any other sea, so I'll trust your words and join you. Hugo declared, accepting Luffy's offer but still maintaining a cautious stance. So that's great, but it doesn't mean it will be easy. Everyone in the crew has enough determination to endure the ship's training. As you yourself said, fighting against the world is not easy, so I expect that from you too. Luffy said, maintaining a serious look as Hugo nodded. He makes us go through hellish training, not that we have determinations. Most of his members thought like this when they heard these words but kept their thoughts to themselves. Anyway, come here, Let's introduce you to the rest of the crew and welcome you." Luffy said happily, glad to have someone with potential for the group. "System, crew, Hugo has joined as a member of your crew." After the introductions, Luffy turned his attention to Johnny and Yozaku, the pair of former bounty hunters whose intentions seemed to diverge a bit. "Johnny, Yozaku, what are you planning to do?" "We're setting sail tomorrow." Luffy's question once again captured the attention of everyone around him. "Brother Luffy, we intend to stay. This pirate business at sea isn't for us. So, we won't be joining you on the next journey." Yozaku expressed his reluctance. "No problem at all, guys. If you don't want to come with us, that's fine." Luffy responded with a warm smile and continued. "We're friends, so don't be too down. I'm sure it won't be our last meeting, and I have some proposals to discuss with you. But we'll talk about that tomorrow." Luffy concluded. "Thank you, Brother Luffy." Johnny expressed his gratitude, while Yozaku joined the gesture, creating a moment of emotion among the crew. "What will be our next destination, Captain?" Zoro asked after a while. "Lobetown," Nami suggested, "as our goal is to enter the Grand Line." "Not yet." Luffy looked at Kuina before continuing. "We're going back to the middle of the East Blue and see Kuina's father before continuing, as I mentioned before," Luffy announced, and many looked at Kuina. "I can't wait to see the master again and watch his face when he sees Kuina again after 11 years. Zoro commented with a smile. "I want to see my father too." Kuina couldn't help but smile at this. Now they could finally reunite. "Anyway, we'll set sail tomorrow once we meet up with Lami, who should be on her way to this island right now, so have fun and get to know our new member and spend some time with our friends who said goodbye tomorrow," Luffy announced before the group returned to the festive activities of the village. The group ate and drank for the next few hours, talking with each other. It was in the early morning that they decided to rest. The girls would go to Nami's house, and the men would stay anywhere else. But Luffy noticed how Nojiko gave him a subtle signal when she walked away. "It seems like this lady is calling me, and I must answer her call." Luffy smiled and waited for a while before going to Nami's house. When he arrived there, he jumped through one of the second-floor windows. As soon as Luffy opened the window, he found Nojiko already awake, holding a glass of wine and calmly observing, although a playful smile played on her lips. "I thought you'd never arrive," she commented calmly, setting the glass aside. "I had to spend some time with the others, but now I'm here," Luffy replied. Nojiko stood up, keeping her eyes fixed on Luffy's, creating a silent tension before succumbing to the heat of the moment. As Luffy and Nojiko looked at each other, there was a mutual desire in their eyes, a magnetism that only increased with the warmth of the situation and the slight effect of the alcohol they had consumed. Both were a bit affected by the drink, adding a touch of boldness and intensity to the atmosphere. As Luffy and Nojiko indulged in intense kisses in the girls' room, a passionate warmth filled the air. Amidst sighs and laughter, Nojiko couldn't help but tease mischievously. "I can see why Nami chose you. Besides your strength and looks, you seem to be quite a lover," she commented, letting her words hang in the air as they continued to lose themselves in kisses. "Ha ha ha ha. If I tell you I'm a virgin, that I haven't even kissed your sister's lips yet." Luffy laughed carefreely, without a trace of embarrassment in admitting his inexperience, especially considering his previous life in this world. "Really? Are you serious? You know it's hard to believe." She looked at him with questioning eyes. "I swear on my conqueror's hockey," Luffy joked, referring to his irresistible charisma. "Hockey of what?" "Ah, forget it. Just come here. I've never done this, I've only heard about it from other women in the village. And since you haven't done it either, let's learn together," she said, grabbing Luffy once again. Both, fueled by alcohol and a collective impulse, undressed each other. In a moment of desire, they threw themselves onto the bed, surrendering to the heat of the moment. Even though Luffy was a virgin in this body, he guided Nojiko while taking the girl's virginity without pain, using a bit of his devil fruit powers to ease the recovery as he made his first penetration. After isolating the room with soundproofing, the bed rocked during the next hour with the two animals in heat. Some time later. "Wow, that was so good," Nojiko spoke while lying naked on Luffy's chest. "It really was. Congratulations, you took the virginity of the future most powerful man in the world," Luffy said in a playful manner. "Is that some premium I should be proud of?" she growled, not liking what Luffy said. He spoke as if she should settle for it, as if it were some kind of conquest. Maybe a prostitute could be proud of that, but not her. "Easy there, it was just a joke. Do you think I'm going to toss you away after today? You have to come with us now." Luffy smiled, seeing that she was upset. "I'll think about it," she said, a bit happier with Luffy's words. "And what do you mean by taking virginity?" No virgin grabs a girl and throws her like a doll onto his lap with intensity. I had 2 orgasms in those 3 minutes. She punched Luffy's chest with this comment, and he smiled at the girl. Ha 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 ha, it was a lot of fun. He laughed like a bandit, enjoying himself, and looked mischievously at Nojiko now. He was 2.1 meters tall while the girl was 1.7 meters, making it easy to embrace her. This body gives me absurd endurance and control, elevating a sexual relationship to another level. Luffy smiled at this thought, still not wanting to sleep. Do you want to continue? You know my body may not handle having sex that way. I was still a virgin until an hour ago. She joked, playing the hard-to-get girl. Is that so? I thought you were looking at me with desire, especially after I increased your recovery by 30 times after we stopped. It's a shame. Luffy joked with her again. Ha ha ha. Fool, of course, I want to. It's not every day you get to have the first night of your life with a Prince Charming from the stories my mother used to tell me and my sister when I was a child. She joked. Well, I'm more of a villain, but I'll accept your reasoning. Luffy laughed. So tell me, evil villain, what do you intend to do with this poor maiden? She said, opening a mischievous smile. Luffy was a bit silent with this since he didn't know what to say. Nojiko was very direct and bold. No answers. Maybe she should show this evil villain some interesting things. She said, and attacked Luffy, who let her kisses come and responded to the staring woman. 2 hours later. Luffy was with Nojiko in bed, but he felt heavy steps coming into the room, wondering who it could be. Since no one could know he was here except for one person, he already prepared to muffle the sound in the room. Luffy. You bastard. Her voice came out quietly due to the power of the more fruit model, amplify human devil fruit. Boom. Luffy opened his eyes at the sound of the door breaking, and a furious Yamato stormed into the room. You betrayed me. She growled softly, although she wanted to be shouting at him right now, and Luffy looked at her with a bit of sleepiness. This silly girl always acts like this. It's time to teach her a lesson. Luffy looked at her, coming out of his drowsiness, and got up from the bed. Yamato changed her expression to a slightly surprised one as she saw Luffy walking towards her naked. Hey, why are you like that and coming over here? She suddenly entered a shy state with this. Yamato, do you know what Oden and Toki used to do together? Luffy smiled at her with this question. I have some idea, but I've never done those things. She protested. Well, let me help you then, it's time for us to become a real couple. Luffy announced, and seeing Yamato taller than him, he had a certain pride, so he increased his size with mass application at this moment. Luffy could use 10% of his mass power on living beings.